Welcome to the Mostly Pod Out of Night. Mostly, I am Graveyard, joined by my co-host Salem.
Hello.
This is our new season, so this is episode 24, but we're going to call it season 2, episode 1. And great way to start off the new year, and what better way to start off than with our top 5 and bottom 5 of horror movies that came out in 2022. Some of these we have gone into a little bit of depth into before, some we haven't. So we'll do highlights, first thoughts when we watch these movies, have a discussion point of why they're on our list, and then for the bottom 5, we'll go into the low points and the same things. So we will go ahead and alternate between us, starting at number 5 for both and going up to the worst and the best. So we're going to start off with the top 5 for this year, and for me, number 5 on the list is Fresh. So, this being a new year and these movies come out in 2022, and anyone who hasn't seen any of these, spoilers ahead for all these movies that came out in 2022. So anyway.
Yeah, it's only like, what, 7 or 8 movies I have to watch?
Yeah.
Before this. So yeah, well, I'll go watch 7 or 8 movies and then come back.
Right. And I will be putting the list in written format too, so you can go ahead and know what movies we're discussing for spoiler alert as well. So, like I said, my number 5 spot is Fresh. So, we're doing quick summaries of the plot. We're not going to, as deep as we normally do for these movies because we have a lot to talk about. But Fresh essentially starts off, I don't even remember her name at this point in time. That's pretty bad.
Call her a female protagonist.
Yes, female protagonist.
I'm pretty sure that was her name.
Yes. We meet female protagonist, and she's going essentially like Tinder dates, and she's going on a date with probably the douchiest guy that you could possibly imagine being matched with, I would say. Would you say that's fair?
That's a fair statement.
Just generic hipster number 1, we'll call him.
Right.
And he's going, "Oh, you didn't dress up for me. How could you not dress up for me? You're just wearing a sweatshirt and sweatpants. Oh, you didn't eat that. Can I take it home? I'm going to eat it. Oh, it's we're going Dutch on the check. So you pay for your meal, I pay for mine, but I'm still going to take your leftovers, and you're not going to put out."
Right.
Yeah. So, and I can understand, like, first dates. I think we discussed this briefly before. I think it was on the podcast. Just the expectation of being putting out in the first date is absurd, I think. Why, should you dress up nicely for your first date for a first impression? Probably, maybe more than the sweater and sweatpants, but she was comfortable. And then he just made it very awkward, very uncomfortable, and to the point where she just wanted to swear off dating and using whatever app she was using. Rightfully so. And then she's just, talking to her best friend, and was it her other friend? That's like the DJ? Or she worked with him, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, she just happens to be out in her normal life, and she goes to the grocery store and meets Sebastian Stan. And they have a good conversation, just discussing stuff at the grocery store, just kind of small talk, and, gets his number. And they just kind of go out, start dating a little bit on and off, immediately have sex, because it's Sebastian Stan. Why wouldn't you?
Right.
And just, things kind of get hot and heavy pretty quickly, I would say. To the point where he, invites her up for a weekend at his house. There's going to be no cell reception, of course, because you got to have that line for horror movies nowadays, especially.
I'm pretty sure that's in the summary of every single horror movie that's come out in the last decade.
Yes. Or no battery.
Item 1, no cell reception.
Yeah. She tells her friend that she's going to be there. And her other friend, that her coworker, I guess. And essentially she goes there, and they have a nice dinner, and then she's drinking something, and then she kind of passes out. She essentially was drugged, right? She was not roofied, but liquid chloroform, let's say. And she wakes up, and she's in a holding cell in a basement, and she's kind of locked up. I think she's chained to floor, and she just has like a little mattress that she's laying on. And eventually, going through talking, she hears someone else that's through a wall saying that he's not really a nice guy, blah, blah, blah. She finds like a magazine that has words in there saying, like, first like he took off my foot or something like that. And, the plot twist is he kidnaps women, chops them up while they're still alive, and sells their body parts to people to eat, for people to eat.
Right. And,
So
if the women are still alive, they get more money.
Correct, because it tastes fresher.
Supposedly. Right.
Right. And so we go through comically stuff of him singing and dancing while like tenderizing and packaging his to-go boxes of lady parts. And he first thing he cuts off is her ass. Which she was painful, yes, but then she still functions pretty well. I don't think they understand what you couldn't do without an ass and how painful it'd be to sit down and anything like that. But she realizes that like he kind of does have feelings for her. And she's going to use her feminine wiles to like seduce him. And she even partakes of a dinner that he made out of people, of women. Which she does it and immediately throws up when she gets back to her room. I don't blame her. And it just kind of goes on for a little bit. She's learning more and more about him. Her friend doesn't know where she is, hasn't called her. She's supposed to be checking in. But he has her phone and texts her, and just something didn't seem right. And you see like he has a whole box of cell phones. Her friend eventually gets captured. Comes to investigate, and she has another dinner with them, and then she realizes that it's her friend that she's eating. She's eating her breasts in like a rigatoni or some pasta. And essentially, yeah, she just kind of they start hatching a plan, and then I don't remember how she escapes. I think it was the help of things like she seduces him enough, kind of knocks him. Oh no, I remember now. She seduces him to having sex, and she bites off his dick. And so, yeah, she starts escaping.
Penis. You're supposed to use the correct, scientific wording here.
Yeah, that's fair. And then, her other friend that's supposed to drive up there, he gets all the way up there. He goes, no, I can't do this, and goes to leave. Like, he drove through to upstate New York. It's always upstate New York when you're in New York City that you always go to the country. And,
but upstate New York is huge.
I know. I know.
Like I've driven through it multiple times, and you're driving for hours. And you're like, how long is New York?
Yeah. On the side note, we find out that her friend investigates him and finds his house, and finds out he's married, and his wife's missing a leg, and we find out that she's the one leaving notes in the magazine that he also fell in love with her and then killed her.
Well, yeah, that's true, but it was a different lady that was leaving the notes in the magazine.
Okay. And so they start to escape. They find out that his wife is there. Like, oh, you're here to help us. Fantastic. We can stop him now. And she's in on it. They end up killing her. And he comes out chasing them, and then he loses his complete cool and control. He's very controlled and had a method to himself that he kind of broke just out of revenge and anger, and they end up killing him, and they escape. End the movie, right?
Yep.
Except we see the businessmen or the rich people eating, and they realize there's other suppliers, setting up a potential sequel. So for me, highlights is I think Sebastian Stan played like a phenomenal, like almost serial killer, any of the cannibal serial killers. He obviously eats some of his product as well. He has to, do like meal planning and suggestions and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, he was obviously into it. It's not like just something he does for money. No, he's obviously into the whole scene.
Right.
He's obviously not as rich as some of his clients are, because they show the clients being like, insanely rich.
Yeah, top 0.1%. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, he's very well off. I mean, they give him enough money, they pay him enough for those things to make sure that he's comfortable and keeps going.
Right.
But yeah, he's not quite at that super level, so he has to keep working. But you can tell he's also into it. Like, he enjoys it. Like,
yeah,
like I said, he cooks for her several times, and he's very, very proud of the meals that he cooks. So
yes. So like I said, first time watching it, and I go, you know what? This is it's. I feel like it's been a while since we had a cannibal movie that I can recall. And
well, I mean, maybe I don't know. I see them all the time. I'm just saying, but years wise, I don't know. That's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously late 70s, early 80s. We had a lot more of those. It's just the wave of Italian cannibal movies. Cannibal Holocaust, all that stuff. So, but this was like, I think, a good portrayal of someone who'd be doing this, like a serial killer, and who thinks he's not doing anything wrong, and always they seem to always kind of fall in love with their victims at times, even though they end up killing them. Yeah, I just thought that was just an interesting take on it. It was just a unique take on it overall.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was done well. It was, there was enough changes and turns in there that it was a fun watch. I was definitely interested the whole time. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be mad if there was a sequel. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't probably have Sebastian Stan.
I would be furious.
You would?
I don't know. No,
I'd be furious if Sebastian Stan was in it, but I can see him like, this is now a revenge, plight, and they go after these other people. I can see them doing that.
I mean, there's a lot of different directions they can go.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a feeling they'll probably go in a dumb direction, but
probably after such a great movie, the sequel is generally worse.
Well, because it's usually like, the people who make it really don't, if they kill like the main antagonist, they really don't want to keep going with it. Right. It was just a cool thing that they had. And if somebody tries to keep going with it, it's usually without the original person. And it usually goes in some ridiculous, direction that doesn't make sense.
There'd probably be something supernatural at some point in time.
Yeah, probably.
Or in space. No.
You never know. Cannibals still need to eat when they're in space.
That's true. That is true. All right. So that was my number 5. Top 5. What was your number 5?
My number 5 would be Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new 2022 version. Honestly, I was not expecting much from this movie. I expected it to be terrible. Because it's like a straight to Netflix movie. I mean, yeah, I didn't hear like anything about it other than it was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and they were like, kind of sort of rebooting the franchise. Not really. I mean, it's, they stay faithful to the originals, but
yeah,
or at least some of them. I don't know. They went in some wacky directions in some of those sequels, but at no part do they ever, say that none of that did not happen.
Right.
But it's just like a modern, kind of retelling. But yeah, it's set in the modern day as if the stuff in the 70s happened. So basically, like, the first movie definitely happened. And there's like a, wherever that house was. And they always say it's outside of Austin somewhere, but they never say where.
Right.
But yeah, it's outside of Texas, in Austin, Texas, at some point. So essentially, nearby to where that stuff happened, there was a town. Just a little bitty sleepy town, like less than 100 people. And because of all the, the horror, the murders that happened there and all the people that came there to look at what's going on and all that kind of stuff, basically drove all the business out of the town. Like, all the people left. And then after the, the kind of fanfare faded away, because, they never caught Leatherface. And, again, the sequels may have happened, but the sequels did not happen in the same area.
Right.
So, yeah, they may have happened, whatever. But this area, like, the people left after the other people left. And then, it was like they just left a ghost town. Okay. So then there's like these hipster kids. Kids, they're like early 20s. And they're like some famous chef. Or two famous chefs that are like working together, and they're basically going to gentrify this old ghost town. They're going to open up a new restaurant together in this town, but they basically bought the whole town. And they're trying to get all these investors interested to buy the other like storefronts and stuff in the town so they can like revive this ghost town in the middle of,
right. It was
a desert in Texas. There's nothing around, but they want to.
It was a rendering plant, right? Originally, that kept the town alive. That everyone worked at the plant.
Well, that was in one of the sequels. They don't explicitly say that in this one.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, it was a prequel that said that, but
yeah.
I mean, again, they don't say that none of that stuff happened. They only showed this little town. And they don't actually, go through all the stuff that I explained. They don't really say that. You just have to interpret that from what's going on. Essentially, the facts that you get is there's this ghost town nearby where the chainsaw murders happened. That no one is there in now, and these, people bought the stuff and they got investors coming to do it. So yeah, they go to as they're going, they get to this like gas station, and we see like all kinds of souvenirs and stuff like that, like little chainsaw corkscrews and just stuff like that, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre t-shirts. So obviously they're still trying to like cash in on some of this stuff, but you can tell that the kind of like I said, the fanfare is gone. Like they're still there a little bit, but like it's not a common thing for people to come here anymore. It's been what 50 years almost.
Essentially 50 years, yeah.
Right. So yeah, they stop at this gas station on the way there. The guy's like trying to sell them a bunch of souvenirs. They ask what happened to the girl who survived the first movie, and they say that she became a Texas Ranger and tried to find Leatherface and never succeeded in finding him.
Interesting.
That's about the only intro that we get. And then they get to the town. Oh, sorry. There's a guy with a huge, giant diesel, truck with the smokestacks and everything. That, they assume is like a local, he's like wearing a gun and stuff like that. I mean, this is Texas, so.
Right.
All the local folks do. But he kind of comes off as like a good old boy. And they see his gun and they're all like offended, because they're, hipster type kids and they're in their like electric car. And they're just, they're very, anyway, I mean, there's a little bit of, challenging each other, but nothing major. They're basically just like showing that they don't like each other. And then, they drive away. And then as they're driving away, the big, huge diesel truck, pulls in front of them and then rolls coal all over them, as the kids say.
Interesting.
You know what rolling coal is?
Pooping. I don't know.
No, it's where you take whatever, gas guzzling monster thing that you have. Then you go in front of a car. Usually they do it to like a hybrid or an electric car. And they like, I don't know what you do, but you do something to where like your exhaust spews like black smoke.
Oh, okay.
So you get in front of those cars and then you spew the black smoke at them as the like a big like, screw you.
Yeah.
I don't agree with your green earth stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a good old boy type thing. It's a rural area thing. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, so they get to this ghost town. They're looking around, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is perfect," except for the Confederate flag that's hanging from this one house. They find out that the guy that rolled coal on their electric car is actually the contractor that they hired to not fix everything up, but make it look, kind of sort of presentable, right?
Yeah.
He only had a week, so he did what he could, but it looks good enough. So anyway, so they go into this house, because the Confederate flag is hanging from the second floor window. So they go in this house, they go upstairs. There's bars on the window, so they can't reach the flag. But they realize that there's an old lady living in this house. And again, they own all the property. Like, they supposedly own the deeds to every building in this town. As they're, trying to leave, she's like, "Oh, what are you doing? I didn't know we were going to have guests. Here, have some tea." And as they're drinking, she's like, "What are you still doing here? You're supposed to leave." And she's like, "Oh, no. I worked that out with the bank. Everything's fine."
The bank.
Yeah. And she's like, "Well, no, we own all this stuff." And she's like, "Oh, do you have the title, the deed?" And they're like, "Yeah." Well, okay, well, you're going to have to show it to me and then we'll leave. And you see like she's got like a big, silent, whatever child, I guess you want to call it.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, her ward. Anyway, it was an orphanage. And there's only one ward that she has left, which is an old man, the big giant old man, but he's the only one that's still left. So anyway, they go outside and they're basically like, okay, we got to get this old lady out of here. She doesn't own this house anymore. So they call the cops. The cops come in, and they say like, hey, we told you weeks ago you need to get out of here. And they grab her and they put her in in like a paddy wagon, arresting her for, I don't know, trespassing or something. I have no idea. And of course the big giant guy goes with her because it's like her son or whatever. And the one girl, the chef girl, wants to go with, but of course she's like, one of the major people, like the people who has to present to the investors. So like, no, you can't go. So this other chef's wife is there. I guess I should introduce the characters. The two chef. There's one chef guy and the chef girl. The chef guy has a wife. The chef girl has a little sister. And the little sister is kind of like I don't know how you say it, like emotionally shattered, we'll say, because she was involved in a school shooting, so she can't really like function in the real world.
So like almost like a PTSD.
Right. Yeah, definitely that. But I'm sure there's other things going on. They kind of insinuate that she's incapable of, living on her own. Anyway, so they drive off in the van to take her to the thing. They have an accident because the old lady dies in the back. The big dude doesn't like that, obviously. He tries to save her. The one cop that's in the back is like, hey, man, she's dead. Leave her be. He doesn't like that answer. He grabs his arm, snaps it off, and then stabs him in the neck with his own arm bones. And as he's, choking on his own blood, he goes to shoot and somehow shoots forward. And he shoots the other cop who's driving in the neck. He flies off the road, crashes into a combine, right? And the other girl was sitting in the passenger seat. Everybody gets knocked out. Okay, they wake up. She looks in the back. Everybody's gone. Well, the one cop, the dead cop is there, but the big guy and the old lady are gone. And he sees a little bit of the big guy dragging her body away. So she's like, she tries to get out her door. Her door is locked. She basically, looks over to the other cop. She's trying to figure out a way out. When he comes back, she sees him like carving off her face, the old lady's face, and he puts on her face over the flesh mask. And now we obviously know that this was Leatherface. And he was living in an orphanage for the last 50 years, which makes him, 70? At the youngest.
At the youngest, yes. Yeah, he wasn't. I don't consider him young.
No, I would say like Leatherface in the original movie. I would say he's like, probably like 30-ish, maybe late 20s, maybe early 30s. Obviously, who knows? We don't know. We don't really see his face, but
right.
I would just say, based on his build and everything. So, we're talking 80? He's 80 years old.
Yeah.
So anyway, whatever. They kind of made it like alluded to the fact that he was just a kid when that happened, but that doesn't make sense if you've seen the first movie. Anyway, so yeah, he cuts off her face, he puts it on, he becomes Leatherface again. He comes up to the window, the cop wakes up. He comes to the window and finishes killing the cop. She waits till he leaves again. She tries to get out. He hears her. He comes over and kills her too. But not after she does get out and sees like he made like this weird little shrine with the old lady, like sat around some bales of hay and like put a bunch of sunflowers around her and stuff, whatever.
Almost like Mrs. Voorhees' shrine from
right. Yeah, whatever. It's a typical, horror villain shrine.
Right.
So she dies too. Okay. And then he, goes back to the town. The old lady, before she died, whispered something to him about like, the place I told you to not go in my room, you should go there or something. Anyway, something, I don't remember what she said, but something like that. Anyway. So they have their little auction with the investors. It seems like everything's going well. Um, and her little sister decides to go off and like check out other stuff. She starts palling around with the contractor guy. And even though she doesn't like guns because of the school shooting thing, the guy is kind of like, teaching her the ropes or whatever. The other girl gets upset that she's hanging out with him. And then they end up going to the old orphanage because at this point they get the text that the lady died. So they go to the house to try to find the deed, I guess, to see if she had it. Because when they went in the bus to look for it, it wasn't there. So they go to the house to see if she had it, and they do find it. So she actually had the deed. She was the legal owner of the house, which again makes no real sense to me. Because the police, if they came to her house and told her to leave weeks ago, the police don't do that unless they have a legal reason to do so. Especially if they're if she has local deed, cops that know each other. But so I mean, they would have had to say, we own this house. They would have had to show the police that we own this house. They would have to go to court, say, we own this house. We want these people out. Then they would get a court order to remove the occupants. So in order for that to have happened, in order for the police to have asked her to leave, all of that stuff already happened. So I just kind of discount this whole a title thing. She might have a piece of paper that says title, but I don't think that means she actually owns that place.
Right.
At this point, they're kind of trying to show that they're in the wrong because of that. But I mean, knowing basic legal procedure, it's not true. Are they assholes? Yes, absolutely. Not denying that at all. I'm just saying legally, I don't think they owned this house.
Texas law.
Right. Yeah. It's not, I mean, it's not going to matter soon anyway, but I'm just saying at this point, they make it seem like, oh, we are the bad people, but I don't really believe that.
Anyway. Are we the baddies?
Right. Yeah. I don't really believe that. So, as we're in there, of course, Leatherface comes in. I'm just going to summarize it here. He kills the contractor guy. He kills somebody else. Oh, who else was there? I don't know. Somebody else was there. Anyway, contractor guy dies. The girl hides under the bed. He breaks through the wall, finds his chainsaw, which was the thing that the lady hid in the wall. There's a scene of her like trying to like sneak past him and go downstairs. Of course, he finds her. She somehow ends up in the floor because she falls down the stairs and falls through the floor. And then she eventually crawls out, and crawls out a vent in the side. Her little sister finds her and helps her. At this point, they run back. Oh, that's who it was. The guy, her husband, the chef guy. He was the one who came in there, and he got hit with a big cleaver before he got his chainsaw. I knew there was somebody else there anyway. So he like survives and goes back to like warn everybody, and he's got this huge wound in his side. And then he's going back to warning everybody, and then Leatherface is right behind him, and they all freak out, and they run into the bus. Now this scene is really fun.
It's like a big party bus. It looks
like it's like a big party bus, okay, with like disco lights and house music and all that stuff, and they're all partying in there. And Leatherface gets on the bus and literally slaughters everyone on the bus.
Nice.
Everyone. I mean, there's a lot of really fun, cool death scenes on this bus. People getting cut in half and intestines sliding out the windows. I mean, there's all kinds of fun stuff. I mean, there's a lot of cool scenes before this too. Like I said, when he broke off the guy's arm and stabbed him in the neck was really cool. There's a scene where he hits the contractor dude in the leg with a hammer, and you see the leg break. I mean, there's a lot of really cool like effects in it, like really cool practical effects in it. It was really nice. Anyway, so yeah, he kills everybody on the bus. There's one like banker lady somehow makes it off the bus, but she doesn't last very long. She gets cut in half anyway. I'm trying to think. Anyway, everybody dies except for the chef lady and her little sister, who hide in the bathroom of the bus. And they manage to sneak out of like a skylight as he's killing everybody else. They run into like this old abandoned theater. There's like a showdown, basically. Back and forth. Oh, I'm dead. Oh, I'm not dead. Blah blah blah. Because I think the sister they got in a car to get away, and they died. The lady from the first movie, the Texas Ranger, shows up because the gas station guy called him. I think somebody tried to call her for help on the radio or something, because of course their cell phones weren't working.
Right.
So he called the Texas Rangers, and of course no one else. So no one else is coming to help except for this one Texas Ranger lady. She gets out. She's like, "Oh, I'm going to have a showdown with Leatherface," and he like very easily like defeats her. There's a really fun scene of where he like impales her with a chainsaw and then like holds her up in the air while it's running, and there's just like blood spewing everywhere. It's pretty cool. But somehow she survives long enough to like shoot him again later, which whatever. She does die though. So anyway, so then they end up in this theater with the the whole showdown back and forth, blah blah. So the little sister was trying to hide and fight him, and then the other sister managed to get herself out of the car, gets the shotgun from the lady, and then shoots him and ends up in the water. They go outside and they think they're all safe. She goes in their electric car and sets the autopilot to take them home. And she sets the autopilot, and then Leatherface runs out of the theater, grabs the one chef sister out of the car, while the little sister's like sticking, her head out of the sunroof crying, and he just like cuts her heads off with a chainsaw while she's staring at him. And then that's the end. He does his dance. He does his dance in the street like he does in the first one.
Yeah.
That weird dance. He does that dance in the middle of the ghost town, and then that's it. So yeah, only the little sister survived. Everyone else got killed by Leatherface. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. I mean, again, the practical effects really stood out to me because they didn't there was so many movies that we saw before this.
Yeah,
I think just because they were cheaper, where they turn away, before all this like stuff happens, that we just kind of see the aftermath. Right. This one, it like just shows it like just dead on. I mean, like you see every kill, you see everything bad that happens.
Right. I mean, as we discussed after we did, the horror movie convention and the marathon that we hosted, Texas Chainsaw, like how little you actually see in that movie.
Right.
And we're nearly 50 years later, and obviously it sounds like they had the budget to be able to do all the stuff they probably would have wanted to do the first time around.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, there's some crazy scenes. I mean, they did a fantastic job with the effects. I'm sure it's a mix of practical and CGI, but it looked good. It looked great. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not get to this movie this year. It's definitely on a list, and it'll probably be, I don't know, we would do a recap of, we do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in August, dog days of summer. So I know, obviously, the spoiler alert is that, the woman from the first one that survived comes back, but it's not the same actress.
No, yeah, the original actress died in 2014. So it's a different actress, but yeah, she's an older, wiry lady. Yeah,
right. So
not that it matters because again, she dies pretty quickly after she shows up.
So how do you feel with the legacy character coming back to die?
I mean, that's cool. I mean, they're trying to do like a reboot, but trying to stay faithful to the original. And if she survives, it's kind of, like that open air, like, well, why didn't they say anything? Why wouldn't they mention that, that this lady is still alive or something? I mean, they didn't necessarily have to make her a Texas Ranger, but the fact that they did and gave her an exit, at least like she tried to fight back kind of thing was interesting.
Yeah.
I think it would have been more distracting if they didn't mention it or bring her back than if they did. Yeah, I don't think it was necessarily needed to bring her back. It really wasn't, but again, it's closure, right? They get to close the door on the old stuff. I mean, obviously it's the same Leatherface, not the same actor, but the same, character.
Yeah, Gunnar Hansen's, I think, been dead for quite some time.
Right. But I mean, yeah, again, so now all the legacy people are dead. Now they get to start over.
But I mean, how do you feel about like how much longer can Leatherface go on if it's 50 years later?
Well, I mean, if he's still like, doing what he does at 80 degrees, I mean, Who knows, dude? I mean, every other franchise has been like, they're supernaturally powerful, whatever. I'm sure they could do something like that. Or hell, they don't even have to mention it at all.
Right.
He could just be a killer. That's it.
Yeah.
Why is he still alive? Who knows? He's got gray hair, so obviously he ages in some way.
Right. Obviously we did the whole Halloween franchise, and yeah, Michael Myers was great. He's aged, but there really wasn't. Initially, there wasn't anything really supernatural about him on the reboot, the requel, if you will.
Right.
Obviously, in the later movies, yes, there's definitely something supernatural going on. Evil dies tonight.
Right.
So, I mean, I know Texas Chainsaw is kind of like one of your favorite franchises.
Yeah.
Do you think this was what we've needed in the past 20 years of Texas Chainsaw?
Yeah, I mean, they've needed to bring it back. I mean, and the last couple of sequels, they've been okay. I mean, they haven't been great, but they haven't been terrible.
Okay.
They had like a goofy prequel one in there, where they like people worked at that, like you said, the processing slaughterhouse, whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, again, they were okay. I mean, they weren't great, but they weren't. I wasn't upset that I watched them.
Okay.
But yeah, again, they weren't fantastic. I think this one is up there. I mean, obviously not better than the first one, and not better than the second one, because I think the second one is just so ridiculously fun that it's very hard to get better than that.
I mean, it's very iconic.
Yeah. I mean,
for
there's
a reason,
right? I mean, yeah, it has that like magic spot in my heart. It's going to be hard to beat too, but I think it's better than the rest of them, definitely.
So because 2 was the last time one Toby Hooper did, right?
I think so. I mean, he was like a producer, I think, on a lot of them. But yeah, he wasn't like, directly involved with writing, directing. I don't believe. I mean, don't quote me on that, but
I mean, when we get to that franchise, we'll dive deeper, obviously, further into it, and
right,
figure that out. Okay, I mean, yeah, it's something obviously we're going to review and watch and go into further detail. Like I said, August, probably a 2-parter,
right? But I mean, it was. Yeah, this the last note that I'll say on this is I really expected it, with it being a straight to Netflix type thing. I really expected a PG-13 cop out.
Yeah,
I really expected that to be like, oh, it's a new version of them to where you can't see the bad kills and all that kind of stuff. Like I really expected like a pulled punch version of it. And my mind was like immediately changed as soon as that first kill happened with that cop. I was like, wow, okay, we're going this way. Like this is a totally different direction, but I'm here for it.
But so you think it's just a good return to form?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so number 4 for both Salem and I are the same movie.
It is shocking.
And I know, right? And it is Smile. So I think since we have it both on our list, we just kind of tag team this.
All right.
Right. We have a couple of similar movies on these lists. Surprise, surprise, right? So Smile essentially is a quick kind of a brief summary. It's essentially I don't know if they ever say if it's a demon or a ghost or a curse or whatever it is. I don't think they explicitly say, I think, for a particular reason.
I'm going with demon.
You're going with demon? That's fair.
It seems like a demon to me.
Yeah. So we meet, I don't remember her name either. Let's call her Discount Jennifer Gardner.
Oh, wait, no. I believe her name was female protagonist.
Female protagonist. All right. Sounds about right. I'm actually gonna look up her name. Okay, it is Rose.
Rose. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. She is a therapist, whose boss is Cal Penn.
Well, she's an emergency mental health physician.
Right. So the people brought in with their a threat to themselves, they get taken as who she sees then. Would you say that's fair?
Yes.
So essentially, we see what glimpses of her. We're assuming as a child of someone laying in bed and like overdosing on pills.
Right.
And she wakes up from her dream. And that's just kind of our introduction to her. Kind of, I'd say it's a standard horror fare. There's just establishing there's some tragedy in her past. We get more into it later in the movie, but we can probably say this is maybe her idea is this is her driving force for doing what she does, is that her mom was unstable, and because of it, she just wanted to go into the field where she can help people that have the same afflictions. That's what I gathered from it.
Right. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that makes sense.
So I believe we were then introduced to her very first patient.
Well, yeah, just about right there, but yeah.
Yeah. Her patient saying that there's something following her, that she can't sleep, that she's seeing things, and I think she tells her there's always smiling.
Yeah. She basically says that the thing sometimes it'll take the form of someone sometimes it'll be a complete stranger, but you can always tell it's them because they have this horrible smile.
Right. Which is where we get the title from.
Right.
This is the only time she sees her at this point. Right?
Yeah. No, yeah. She came in, everybody, I'm assuming they probably thought she was having a breakdown, but obviously we know what happens in this movie, so we know that she was just basically at the end of this cycle.
Right.
To where, the thing was haunting her and messing with her, to the point where she gets to a certain mind state to where it can just essentially take her over.
Right. Oh, we should, I guess, also introduce one of her other patients that she has. That he's a regular in there. He's kind of like in there for who knows how many times at this point in time. I don't remember his name, but yeah, he plays a part in this just a little bit later. But essentially, this woman, she's saying that, hey, I need this help, blah blah blah. You don't understand, and essentially, she's done. There's glimpses of her seeing something that we don't see.
Yeah, well, she's like screaming, backing away, saying, "It's here, it's here,
it's here." Yeah, she's like looking right past Rose.
Right.
Yeah, Rose looks back and she sees nothing. She's okay. Clearly, she's having like a psychotic break. And she goes to get help.
Yeah, she goes to the bat phone. Yeah, to call for help. And then as she's on the phone calling for help, it gets real quiet, and she turns around, and the patient is there with this huge smile on her face. And she picks up a piece of like a flower pot that had broken when she, tried to back off earlier, and she just like slices her own throat open.
Right. She makes a smiley face on her throat.
Well, yeah, but she's smiling the whole time. So like as she's slicing her throat and bleeding to death, she is smiling the whole time.
Yep. Which is, traumatic for anyone to see. And Rose is clearly, shaken by it. And her boss goes, do you need some time off? This is just for your patient, which really wasn't her patient, but still traumatic enough to say, when something like this happens, you need to take time off and speak to someone. This is what we do for a living. If you see someone with therapy, do you have someone that you can talk to? And she goes, yeah, she has her own therapist she had from probably her childhood. I would think. I don't establish how long she's had her.
Whatever. She has a history with her. That's all we know.
Yeah. But then she starts to see, she goes, no, I'm fine. And she goes, I think, back to work the very next day.
Yeah. She goes back to work, and she starts having, basically the visions of this smiling thing, right? So where she's starting to have the same symptoms that her patient did.
Right.
And then it basically comes to a head as she goes to the one guy who's like really depressed and kind of, out of sorts. I don't know how you describe it, like kind of catatonic almost.
Right.
And she goes to check on him, and then he is like threatening to kill her and hurt her. And so she like, stands against him and calls for help and stuff, and realizes that that didn't actually happen.
Right. He's on the stuff. He was just laying on the bed.
Right. Yeah. So like the team comes in and like, shocks him and sedates him and all that kind of stuff. But she realizes, very shortly that what she thought happened didn't actually happen. And this is the point, where her boss basically says, okay, like you need to go home. Like you need to take time off. Like obviously you're still messed up.
Yeah.
So you need to go home. And she starts having like, visions of, people, being in her house, and like hiding in the shadows kind of thing. She loses her cat, Mustache.
Yep. And her boyfriend, her husband? Was her boyfriend or husband?
I don't know if they're married or whatever. They live together. So
yeah, regardless.
Right.
She kind of just goes on like a little psychotic break, I would say.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, essentially at this point, everybody is like worried for her because, she's like obviously kind of breaking down. She looks, disheveled and stuff, like she's not sleeping and all that kinds of stuff. And then she like, it's going to be her nephew's birthday.
Yes.
So she and her sister says like, oh, he loves trains. So, go get him a model train or whatever. So she goes, gets him a model train, and then goes to his house, for the birthday party.
Yep.
And as he's sitting and opening up his presents, he opens up the present. It's the box that she got him with the electric train. And she opens it, and he opens it up, and he's, you can see his face kind of go like, oh, what?
Like very visible confusion.
Right. And then he pulls out her dead cat, Mustache.
Yep.
Of course, she like freaks out. She's like, yeah, I didn't do this. I would never do this. Like, I don't know.
This isn't me.
This came from. Yeah, this isn't me. And she left. And of course, everybody is like, there's something seriously wrong with you. Like, you need to go into therapy. You need to check yourself into rehab or something. Like, something is seriously going on.
Yeah.
And at this point, she basically realizes that, whatever, took over the other girl has taken her over as well. So she's trying to find out more information. She basically finds out, because the girl had told her that she started seeing the smiling thing after her teacher killed himself in front of her.
Right.
So she looks more into that. She talks to the wife. She said that, basically the same symptoms that both of them went through, he went through too. She goes and looks into like his art room, and there's all kinds of pictures of like this, demon smiling, or like this blackness with a smile.
Black entity. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you're like, okay, this is the same thing. So she goes to her ex-boyfriend, who is a cop.
Yep.
And asks him to look into this further. And he basically finds that it's been a pattern. So like, if somebody kills themselves in front of somebody else, or if it's like a horrible murder, whatever it is, something horrible happens in front of the other person. That person lasts for like 3 to 7 days. And then at the end of that,
maximum is 7. The average is 4 days.
Right. So yeah, essentially at the end of that time, they do something horrible and tragic, and then the pattern just keeps going.
Right.
So yeah, they follow the pattern back, and they eventually find this kind of gap where something different happens. So like, instead of one person killing themselves in front of another one, it actually, this guy kills someone else, and then the pattern follows them.
Yes.
So that one guy survives. So they go to visit him in prison.
How did you do it? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Basically, how did you do it? And he basically says that thing. It's like, this thing thrives off of trauma. So you have to give it trauma. And he's like, so either you have to do something horrible in front of someone else for it to go into, or it's going to take you. Or it's going to eventually kill you and force you to kill yourself, and then keep that trauma train going.
And, she's like, I have. He's like, you brought it back.
Yeah. So he's obviously freaking out because he doesn't, if if the thing takes her over and she kills herself in front of him, he has to do it again, and he's in prison and he can't, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, but she leaves and he's out of the story. So at this point, she really, kind of goes had like a weird fantasy to where she's going to go kill the catatonic dude that she threatened earlier. Obviously that was just like a dream kind of fantasy thing. She does go to the hospital, and her boss does see her there, but she basically leaves. And then she kind of comes to the decision that, okay, I'm not going to kill anybody.
Yeah.
But I don't want to for this thing to kill other people around me. So she goes back to her original childhood home, which has been abandoned. Like her and her family still own it, but it's like an old abandoned spooky haunted house kind of thing.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere.
OD'd.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So she basically goes to this house, locks herself in, and then just kind of like is planning to just camp out there. I don't know exactly what her whole plan was there.
I think her plan was if there's no one around to pass the trauma on, that she wouldn't then do it.
Right. But I think she kind of decided that she was probably just going to die. She just wanted the train to end. With
her.
Right.
Yeah.
So she was like, I'm probably going to die. I just don't want this thing to go to someone else. Like, just end it with me. I think is where she was going. She didn't say that, but I think that's where it was going. And of course, when she's in this house, she starts having visions of her mother, that killed herself. And the mother is like, telling her she forgives her. Of course, it's a trick. And then it turns into the monster and she like gets huge. She turns into like a giant.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's like chasing her around the house. She starts having visions of like her boyfriend coming in the house, but then he really didn't. But then again, later he did. It was, right. I mean, it's all over the place. Like she can't trust her own mind.
It made her think that she escaped and won. That she set it on fire with like a Molotov cocktail and that she escaped.
Right. Yeah. And she basically realized that
nope.
No, this did not actually happen. But then the boyfriend did actually show up.
Right.
And then we see basically that she loses the battle. She covers herself in gasoline, turns to the cop ex-boyfriend, and lights herself on fire while smiling. Yes. Therefore, continuing the trauma train.
But we see the creature open up her mouth and then just go inside of her.
Right. Yeah. This creature that, with this horrible smile, but you see he's got like, I don't know, 10 rows of teeth.
Yeah.
So when he smiles, he's got like, a 10 level smile and he's like this big, opens up her mouth and like crawls in her body. So yes, this is why I would say it's a demon, because this really looks like a demon. He's all like red and stuff. I mean,
I would say it looked like a mix of, I would say Pennywise when he opens his mouth and the creature from Barbarian.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or if you want to even go with like the Blair Witch from the 2016 Blair Witch movie, that we actually see the Blair Witch is kind of like elongated humanoid.
Right. But like a giant looking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say like her giant mother was probably the scarier version, even though we see like his true version with the horrible 10 levels of teeth. I would say like her giant mother was probably worse. I don't know what it was, but it was a very freaky thing. So anyway, Trauma Train continues, movie ends. So yeah, we get our bad ending, which is fun.
Oh, I mean, okay. So let's. Do you want to go into your highlights or your first thoughts first?
I thought it was good. I mean, I knew where it was going. I was very happy to see that it ended where it did.
Yes.
It reminded me a lot of Fallen. Did you ever see that movie with Denzel Washington?
No.
It's pretty cool. It's a kind of similar premise, although anyway, it's a little bit different. But it's a demon that can travel between people. And it can travel between them at will. Like all they have to do is like I think touch each other, and they can travel between them. And the demon, when it controls a person, is like a serial killer. This kills people, does all kinds of horrible, horrible shit. And then when it leaves that person, the person has no memory of what happened.
Okay.
But they could have taken him over for years. Like then he could have left them, and they could have been a 10-year gap. They don't know what's going on. Anyway. So Denzel Washington, I think he's a cop. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it, but, essentially he goes, there's a serial killer that killed a whole bunch of people. And he goes to watch the execution. So he's going to die in the gas chamber. And right before he dies, as he's walking into the gas chamber, he's like whistling a tune. It's Time Is On Your Side by the Rolling Stones. He's whistling it.
Okay.
And then, but as he's going into the gas chamber, he touches one of the guard's arms before he goes into the gas chamber. So when the guy is sitting in the gas chamber, he has no idea where he is. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know why he's being killed. He's like screaming for help. Again, he doesn't understand, right? Because he wasn't there. He wasn't the serial killer. The demon was.
He's
and now it passed on to this guard. And so Denzel Washington kind of figures it out because he's like in another body, he's like whistling the same tune. And he's talking kind of sort of the same. And so Denzel Washington is like tracking him down and, kind of finds the past, kind of like how she finds the past of the demon train, and stuff like that. Anyway, the ending of Fallen was what I was really reminding of. But again, it's kind of like how this invisible demon goes from people to people, whatever.
Yeah.
So what he does is he lures the demon to like this house in the middle of nowhere. Okay. And so he goes to this house in the middle of nowhere. He lures the demon out there, and the demon basically thinks that he's going to eventually take him over and then, do horrible shit in his name because he was fighting him. So then he's going to take him over and win. Right.
Yeah.
But what Denzel Washington did is he poisoned himself before he got there. And since they're the only two people there, he shoots the other one. So that the demon's body is dying. And even if he does go into Denzel Washington, he's still going to die because he's poisoned.
Why does this sound really familiar to me?
I mean, you might have seen it. I want to say it's in the 90s. It's had to be of the 90s. Early, mid 90s.
Maybe I've just watched the list with it on there too. I don't know.
It's possible. But anyway, there's a lot of like similarities there. I really like that movie. Fallen was a really, really good movie. Like me and a friend of mine loved that movie growing up. We watched it a bunch of times. But it was a cool movie. And it just has a lot of kind of parallels to that, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the ending is different. Obviously, the ending in Fallen, there is a little bit of like a possible sequel to where like there was a cat there, and they show this cat escaping at the end. So like, oh, maybe he's alive in the cat, right?
Yeah.
And that was it. But in this one, like obviously the trauma train continues. So this one has definitely a bad ending. Fallen has a possibly bad ending.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, this reminded me of a lot like, The Ring or Truth or Dare with the smiling demon that's able to make you see some shit and mess you up until you pass it along. And it seems very similar in that vein. And for me, my first thought was like, okay, like, yes, was I able to predict the ending? Yes, I was. I mean, we all saw it coming, I feel.
Right.
We've seen enough of these movies to know how this is going to go. And it's still, but still nails it, though. Like, even knowing what was going to happen, it still nails it pretty spectacularly. Yeah.
But I also got to give a shout out to, like, the cinematography, too, because there's a lot of, like, interesting shots where like sometimes the camera like goes like upside down,
yeah,
like as they're showing like shots where you usually go like a horizon shot, where you see like where they're driving, it goes into like a horizon shot and then it like flips all the way around, so like it shows them driving away but they're driving away upside down, it's just interesting shots, just done, I thought were pretty cool.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, it seemed like it was a good supernatural horror movie. Like I said, we were seeing some resurgence of these that it had been probably, I don't know, 15-ish years since we really had a good last one besides It Follows. But like we had a whole bunch of these, like the J-horror phenomenon that took place in the early 2000s. A lot of these were based same things, like, One Missed Call, Grudge, The Ring, and stuff like that. That's actually the grudge kills you and then you become, another angry soul that then, someone sees that and you possess them. There's always that linking chain as well.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I'll give you. It definitely has It Follows vibes. And for me, it feels like a mixture of It Follows and Fallen.
Okay, that's fair.
I liked both of those a lot. So yeah, that's a good. Those are good things.
Yeah, I know people. I know a lot of people that were hyped to see this too. Like there was a lot of buzz with this movie too.
There was. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I heard of it. I usually don't hear about very many horror movies, and I even heard of it. So
Yeah. So it's a solid number 4 spot, I would say.
mm-hmm.
So how do you want to do the next one? Because your number 3 is my number 2.
Right.
Do you want to just go into that first, and I'll go into my number 3, then we'll go into your number 2?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Prey, I don't think we have to do a summary because
we've already
if you've gotten to episode 24, you've already listened to episode, what was that? 2, 3?
It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was within the first 5 episodes. We did a lot about Predator, and we also did a lot about Prey. So if you want extended versions of Prey, feel free to listen to that 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, my number 3 is Prey. It's great. I mean, it's considered horror, so yeah, I'll put it high on the list. If it was more of like pure horror, it probably would have been higher on the list. I just like to keep, if I'm going to give like the number 1 and 2 spot, I want to give it to like, a definite, straight up horror movie instead of like a mix. Where Prey is kind of like a mix.
You know what? That's fair. I'll move to my number 3.
I mean, I'm just saying, I loved it. I like overall with all these movies, it would probably be number 1 because I loved it a lot. But again,
it's another one. It's your franchise.
Yeah,
one of your favorites.
It's on every horror list. So yes, I know it is horror, but
yeah.
I just like to keep the first 2 pure, I guess.
I mean, yeah. So essentially, just the quick summary is Predator in the 1800s.
yeah. It's essentially Predator in the 1700s.
1700s, yes. Yeah. Late 1700s, but 1700s.
Yeah, Predator in the 1700s with native peoples and the encroaching colonizers.
Yes. And as we discussed, this was, our highlights. It was a return to form because realistically, Alien versus Predator they are what they are. The Predator was absolute garbage. Predators was great.
Right.
But this felt the most like the first Predator.
Correct.
I think they did a lot of practical effects still, and it was what the Predator franchise needed. That could be it could be any timeline at this point in time. They really opened that up. That could just be different stories. It doesn't have to be, a continuation of anything.
Yeah. At this point, it's kind of like it's almost like Assassin's Creed, to where it can be in any time period with any kind of protagonist. You just, but you can still fit it all into one mythos.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it was just a perfect return to form. I know they're talking about doing a sequel to it.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
Potentially. Well, just because I don't remember her name, but she was fantastic in the role, the protagonist.
Yeah, the only other thing I had ever seen her in was in what was the name of that show? The one it was a Marvel show, Legion.
Okay, she was in Legion.
She was in Legion. She was like there was like this one character that he was like an old man, but he had like a young girl that lived inside his body. And she would like come out and like fight because she was like the one who knew how to fight and stuff, and she was like super strong and all that. So she would like come out and fight, and then when she was done, she would like go back into his body.
All right, so reverse Monster Girl from Invincible.
Right. Yeah. It's odd. But she was the girl that came out.
Okay.
But she only aged when she was outside of his body. That's why she was so much younger than him. Because she didn't come out that often.
It is like a reverse Monster Girl from Invincible because
right.
Every time she transformed, she got younger.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. But yeah, we definitely go back, listen to our podcast. I'll link it into our synopsis of this as well, so you can go exactly what number. It's probably Predator Part 2.
Yeah,
it's definitely the second half of our Predator items. But yeah, it was.
I think we did Predator all in one episode. I don't think we broke them up. I think that was the one that taught us that we should.
Yes, that's probably.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Probably very accurate. Yeah, I mean, we went hard on that. Then we realized the alien had to be different to break those up.
Right.
That's the year, yeah. So it was Eat, Pray, Predator,
Mm-hmm.
episode 3.
Yep.
Yep. All right. All right. Well, since we have Prey as number 3 on both of our lists, I'll go into my number 2 next, and that movie is X. Um, X was a earlier of this year release, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. We were like, okay, it's from director, writer Ty West, and really didn't know that, knew that name from then. And then he did, when we were watching the VHS, he did some short stories for VHS franchise. So I recognized the name there. I'm like, okay, this is a name I can look forward to, watching a good horror name in the franchise. So brief synopsis is a group of people are, a group of young people are renting out a barn house on a farm to shoot a porno. You have the sleazy director casting guy. This is, I would say, the second thing I've ever known Jenna Ortega from. The first one being Scream from earlier this year. Now she's blowing up in popularity. And, they're going to shoot a porno there. They meet elderly couple who own the farmhouse. Like, what are you guys doing? Oh, I think he said we're just making a movie or just on vacation.
Yeah, they said they were making a movie. They didn't tell them what kind of movie.
Right. It's like, okay, just stay out of our stuff. You do this. He had a shotgun just to show, just to intimidate, because these people are coming to his farm. That he realized who they were, all that stuff. Now this takes place in the 70s, and I'd say it is a fantastic homage to the 70s feels of Texas Chainsaw, I Spit in Your Grave, and all those old, exploitation films of the 70s. So essentially, yeah, we see group of people. They're starting to make the porno. They have a couple actors, a camera guy, a sound girl played by Jenna Ortega, the star who she thinks she's the star, Maxine, played by, I can't think of her name now. We'll talk more about her later in this list. But you see the elderly wife kind of sneaking in and watching them. And she kills, I believe, the producer first. Like, he goes into the bar and she like stabs him with a pitchfork. And then she goes and lures one of the other actresses out and shoves her into her lake, and she gets eaten by an alligator. Essentially, yeah, the old couple is found out what's going on there and realize they don't like what they're doing, so they kind of go slasher on them. They start killing them off one by one. They knocked out like Jenna Ortega, or in the basement. She tries to escape, and she gets her head essentially blown off. You have a very creepy scene of the main girl in it, and she's kind of the final girl at this point in time. And we have an awkward scene of her hiding in the old couple's house, and they have sex on the bed while she's under it, and her just trying to escape. The sound guy gets killed, and just her trying to escape, and all the while you're talking, on TV they're watching a movie. Oh, Mia Goth is her name, the actress's name. And talking about like a TV evangelist talking about the sins of the flesh and the world and all this stuff. And essentially, Mia Goth's character Maxine is able to escape. She goes after the guy, tries killing her with a shotgun. misses and kind of has a heart attack because he's pretty old at this point in time. He's killed his wife while they're having sex. His heart's not made for this, and she eventually runs over Pearl's head with the van, and she's able to get away. And kind of cuts back to that the preacher or TV evangelist is looking for his missing daughter, and it happens to be Maxine.
You left out the part with Kid Cudi's obvious penis extension.
Yeah.
So when you only see him in silhouette. You don't actually see it, but you see him in silhouette, and his dong is hanging so low you can see it flopping when he's talking.
Yes.
So it's obviously a prosthetic there. I mean, he was the talent in the porno, so I kind of understand it, but it was just goofy. It was fun.
Well, I mean, it's the idea of the baby's arm dying on porno.
right.
And they're just alluding to that. But I mean, overall, like I said, it was in my mind, this is the genre that Rob Zombie is his ideal, because that's what he loved. That would have been his ideal form. And I could see Rob Zombie doing something just like this.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But the highlights, good practical effects, and it really felt like a movie from the 70s. It really did. Except you see all the gore and graphic details, because as previously stated, you didn't really see all that stuff because budgetary reasons and video nasties of the 70s and 80s that we now became accustomed to. But 70s, a lot of stuff was cut away.
Well, yeah, we were Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now you look back on it, and it's fairly tame. I mean, it's a standard slasher type movie, right?
Right.
But at that time, it was everyone was up in arms.
Yes.
Look at all this horrible things happening.
Yeah. And like I said, it was a fantastic movie. I was watching it, I'm like, holy crap! This felt like Texas Chainsaw or I Spit in Your Grave or anything from that era, and done really, really well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I enjoyed it a great deal.
I'm surprised it didn't make your list.
Well, those are the ones that I liked better.
That's fair. That's fair.
I said, it was a hard time making the list, because I mean, I wrote down, I went to all the lists of all the horror movies, and I wrote down all the ones that I watched, and the list of my choices for top 5 was 12, huge. 15 movies long.
Right.
I had to try to decide which ones in there, and I just wrote down the ones I thought were good. I didn't write down all of them.
Yes.
I just wrote down the ones I thought were good, and it was, like I said, it's a good number of them.
Yeah, and I know you watched, more because I'd been watching these sporadically throughout the year too. But we had a list of kind of the big movies that we wanted to watch, that everyone was raving about, and we did go back, both Salem and I, and redo some of these movies and rewatch them that we missed from this year, especially from the stuff that came out during the podcast, because those 4 months were crammed with everything else. So we did miss some later of the year movies. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, that's totally fair. And that's, again, I went through all the best of lists and made sure that I watched all of those to make sure that I saw all the ones that, had the buzz and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a few that I didn't get to, but these are all the ones that got the buzz. There were just some of them that I wanted to watch just because I thought they looked interesting and I didn't get to.
Right. But. Yeah, I guess we should say, this is these. We haven't watched every movie in 2022 that's horror, unfortunately. Maybe we're going to try to do better in 2023 and be more mindful of that. So this wants to be a yearly thing that we do to start off the new year, the new season, and just a recap of our top 5 and bottom 5.
Yeah, I don't think we have to watch all of them, because I mean, if you look at that list, I mean, half of those are straight to video garbage.
Well, we're not. Yeah, most of the VOD stuff we're probably not getting to unless they're part of a current franchise or existing director or stuff like that.
Right.
But we'll be mindful of all that stuff going forward too, just to make sure we try to keep up on those as well. But what's your number 2 then for this?
My number 2 is Barbarian.
Okay.
I thought it was fantastic. I mean, overall, I just the plot real quick is it kind of takes a turn. It takes actually 2 turns as the movie goes along. But essentially, there's this girl who gets a Airbnb, right?
Yep.
And she's goes to this neighborhood in the middle of the night. It's super dark, can't see anything. It's in Detroit. It's super dark, can't see anything, finds the house, goes to the house, tries to go, opens up, because a lot of those Airbnbs, they have like the key, like the realtor key box outside.
Yes, they do.
So yeah, she opens it up and the key isn't there. So she tries to call the people, they're not answering. She tries to call the Airbnb people, they're telling her, try to call them, see what's going on. Anyway, and it's like raining and she's like, I don't know what to do. So she just but she sees like a light on inside. So she tries knocking on the door. And a guy answers and he's like, oh, hey, you're like, what can I help you with something? And she's like, yeah, this is my house. Like, this is my Airbnb. And he's like, oh, I got it from this other site. And she's like, oh no, well, I have Airbnb. And she shows him the receipt. He shows her his receipt. And, they double book. Right.
Yep.
So yeah, the guy is nice enough. She basically calls around to other hotels and stuff. There's nothing available. And so the guy offers, he's like, okay, well, you can stay here. Like, I'll sleep on the couch. You can go in the bedroom that has a locking door. Like, he's very aware of, like, I know I'm some guy that you don't know. You can go in there with, the locked door, and I'll stay out here on the couch, and, we'll just sleep, and then we'll figure it out in the morning.
Yeah.
Because it's late, it's dark, it's raining, there's nothing we can do right now. We'll just kind of go there. Right. So yeah, they eventually, like, at first they just kind of try to go their own separate ways. Neither one of them can sleep. So they kind of end up staying up, and they talk and they realize they have a whole lot in common. They get along really well.
Well, she's there to interview a guy who's gentrifying Detroit, and he happens to be that guy, one of the guys.
Well, he works for this team of people that are doing things. So yeah, he's looking through this, urban decayed area, looking for other spots for their artist collective, and she's there trying to interview people that are,
doing it,
regentrifying Detroit area.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, as things are going along, well, I should specify he's played by the same guy who played Pennywise from the It movie, right?
You immediately go, okay, something's not right with this guy.
You immediately go,
everything he's been in is that character,
right? Like, he's going to be the villain. Like, this guy, he's almost always a villain. He's almost always a trippy, weird guy, right? Like, something like that absolutely happen,
right?
And so you're like, okay, well, this is leading up to something bad. This is leading up to something bad. And so the next day, they stay up, they get along, whatever. She goes to
have
sleep.
Some wine.
Yeah, they have some wine. They go to sleep, and everything is kind of okay. There's like a weird thing where she wakes up and her door was open, and she thought she heard something. And then she looks out and she sees him like having a weird nightmare in the front room,
like a night terror.
Right? Yeah, like a night terror, and that's kind of weird, but whatever. But the night is okay.
Yeah.
And they get off. She goes to like her job interview. That she was going to be a journalist or whatever. He goes off and does whatever. She comes back. They get along again, and they're like, okay, I'm going to stay, again or whatever. Like, he's staying there for like a week or something, and she was just going back to like get her stuff, whatever. And as she's going there, I honestly don't remember what happened, but she goes in the basement.
When she goes back, when she walks out in the morning, she realizes that there's no other occupied house. It's all completely run down.
Yeah,
you didn't see at night in the rain.
Right. Yeah. The whole like neighborhood is all urban decayed, like falling apart. Like,
right.
Man,
and there's a homeless guy. Right. This homeless guy is warning her, like, don't go back in.
Right.
Yeah.
The homeless guy scared her. Like, he was like banging on the door and windows. Like, she had to like hide in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy was, whatever.
Yeah.
So I know she's doing, what was she doing? Was she trying to do laundry or something? I don't remember. She was trying to do something. And she ends up,
a door kept opening.
Well, but that was the door to the basement.
Yes.
And so she went down there for some reason. I don't remember why. And then when the door closed and she got stuck down there.
Yeah.
So she was like searching through the basement, like trying to find a way out. And as she's searching around, she finds like a secret rope in the wall. A
rope through a hole in the wall, like that's hidden by a shelf.
Right. Yeah. So she pulls on the rope and it like opens up this secret door. And she goes into the secret door, and at the end of the hallway is a room, and it's like, your typical creepy murder room. Like it's, blank, bare concrete walls. There's like an old, like rusty bed frame. There's like an old, like VHS camera on a tripod pointed at the bed. I mean, it's like super creepy, right?
Yes.
And she's like, okay, this isn't good. She comes out, she realizes, oh no, that's what it was. She couldn't find the dude, right?
Yeah.
And she was looking for whatever. I don't remember all the exact things. But anyway, so she figures out there's another door at the end of this hallway. She opens up that door. There's like stairs that go down. She goes down those stairs. I think at this point, she gets nervous and goes back. And then that's when she meets up with the guy, and the guy goes down there too. He goes down to look at it. And then he kind of like stops answering her.
Yeah.
And so she like goes down, she goes past the stairs, she goes into there, and she sees there's like this long kind of like hallway there, but it's like super dark. And as she's like going through trying to figure out what's going on, the guy shows back up and he's like freaking out. And she's like, what happened? He's like, something bit me.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, something bit me. I don't know what's going on. Something happened. And then like all of a sudden something grabs him and like smashes him against the wall and like explodes his head. Right.
Yeah.
And then it's just like a hard cut.
Yep.
And now we're like Justin Long is now
in California.
Yeah. He's basically a filmmaker that got Me Too'd, right?
Yep.
He did, basically date raped, one of the actresses he was working with or something, whatever it was.
Yeah.
He sexually assaulted someone else. He got kicked off of his own movie. And so now, of course, all the other projects that he had are now gone, right?
Yes, all his assets.
Right, deservedly so. So now he's like trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to get money to keep living on? So he basically, he owns this piece of property out in Detroit, this Airbnb property. So he goes out there he's going to sell it. And he goes out there to like, I guess measure the square footage and make like a listing to try to sell it.
Yeah.
And he goes there and basically finds the same hidden door.
Well, I mean, he goes in there, he sees suitcases.
Well, yeah, he sees that obviously people were staying there, so their stuff is still there. But he finds the secret door like almost immediately.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, but yeah, in a minute we'll find out that this secret door had been there for years, decades.
At least 50
right.
years.
And no one ever found it, and now all of a sudden 2 people have found it in like less than a week.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, he goes into the secret room. He goes into the same place. He goes down the same stairs. But he's got a flashlight with him this time, so we get to see a little bit more what's going on.
Well, he's measuring. He's like, oh, sweet. Do these count as bedrooms?
Right, yeah. He's like, measuring square feet. Like, all these hallways are going to be great for his square footage. Like, yeah, he doesn't understand. There's no fear yet.
Correct.
So he sees, like, there's, like, big open, like, spaces and rooms with, like, weird cages and shit, and he doesn't seem to care at all.
No.
He just, like, continuing to look. He finds, like, this door. He looks in the door. It's like this weird room with like blankets and pillows all over the floor. And there's like an old like CRT, TV VCR combo. That's like playing
how to nurse your baby.
Yeah, something about nursing or like breastfeeding your baby or whatever. But it's playing, and there's a light on, and there's power down here. And so he's like trying to figure out like what's going on. He goes a little bit further, and then he basically gets attacked by this thing.
Yeah.
Right. That's a pretty good way to describe it. Obviously a lady, right? But it's like a backwoods, hill folk version of a lady. Kind of got that like giant, like elongated arms, freaky look going on. Anyway, so grabs him, throws him in a cage in the floor. And in this cage, he finds the girl from the beginning of the movie, who had been in this cage for a week, 2 weeks, who knows?
A week. Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point we see that, the crazy mom, we'll call her Mom from now on.
Yeah.
So Mom is trying to feed him with a bottle.
On a stick.
And she's just saying, like, just drink it. Like, she'll leave us alone if you just drink it. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So he's immediately starting things. So anyway, they eventually figure out a way to get out of it. They're kind of going back and forth. I mean, I'm trying to remember, where does it?
Well, because he didn't want to take the bottle. Mom takes
Right.
him and tries to breastfeed it.
Right.
So she leaves, by doing that, she leaves the crate in the floor open. So the woman's able to get out.
Right. I'm just saying, I don't remember when it did the other flashback.
I think it's when he meets the guy.
Okay, yeah, I think, yeah. Or anyway, yeah. So they're essentially like kind of escape from the clutches, and they're like running through all these like tunnels underneath the place and stuff. They eventually get to like this area where the mom won't follow them. Like she stops and like, you know, and turns around and like creeps back down the hallway. When he goes into this room, and it's like, it looks like someone's like bedroom. There's like, you know, bookshelves and a bed and TV and you know, all kinds of stuff. And they go in there, and there's like this old man who's kind of like obviously very sick and bedridden, like laying in this bed. And then they do like a weird cut back in time. So we're like now back in the 80s probably.
I would say 70s or 80s because of the bright colors and like a newly developed neighborhood.
Yeah, that's like, why. Yeah, what I would say, 70s, 80s. Yeah, this is like a heyday of Detroit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, everything looks like you know, this night. You know, so instead of the urban decay, which it is now, it's like this nice kind of upscale suburban
like
neighborhood,
gated community, almost.
Right? Yeah. So this guy is he goes to the store and he buys a bunch of like plastic sheeting and the videotape about breastfeeding and all this kind of stuff. Like obviously showing that he is planning on having a baby in his house in some way, shape, or form. We basically find out that this guy is, I guess, what do you call him? Like a serial kidnapper? I mean, he had to have murdered a lot of them too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So he kidnaps and murders women, and then sometimes keeps them alive long enough to have children
to breed with them. Yeah.
Right. And then he kind of like leaves the children to their own devices. So the children end up like raising, and then he ends up like having sex with his own children, and then they have children. And anyway, at the end of this long train is why we get this creepy hill folk mom, because she's like weirdly inbred, and she's apparently the only one that's left.
Yeah.
So this guy is like, you know, basically dying of cancer or something. The dude, he's got a bunch of like VCR tapes on the wall, and they're all named like, you know, Redhead from the gas station, you know, like weird names like that. And he plays a tape. Obviously now he finds out that yes, he is a murderer. You know, he's a kidnapper. Like this guy is a bad news. He like tries to like fight back. But eventually he just gets killed. I believe he has a gun, right?
I think he shoots himself.
Oh, that's right. No, he does. He shoots himself.
Yeah.
And then that's the end of that. So, and Justin Long goes back out and eventually gets killed as well. So then the girl, she manages to barely escape the house, but it's still technically during the day.
Yeah.
And she, you know, gets out of the house. You know, she escapes out and she meets up with the homeless guy. Justin Long is still alive.
We think he's dead.
Right. Yeah. But then, he shows back up.
And they go on top like a water tower ish.
Right. Yeah. Because, they're staying with the homeless guy at first. Because he says, oh, she doesn't come in here. Like she comes out of that house at night and goes through the neighborhood to get like, you know, supplies or whatever.
Right.
But she won't come in my house. And then she proceeds to just come in his house and attack. And the homeless guy dies. Yeah, it's like right next to a water tower. So they get up to the top of the water tower. And then basically, you know, we see Justin Long basically throw her at the mom to save himself.
He's just a roaming douchebag.
Right.
And they fall off, and like mom cradles baby. So mom falls onto the ground first, protecting her.
Right.
Yeah, and they think mom's dead. So Justin Long comes down, and then he gets his face ripped in half.
But not before you can see him with the same, basically the same excuses and self-justification he gave to himself about the whole Me Too thing.
Yep.
He starts saying it about how he had to save himself and how he had to do that to her in order for him to leave. She was dead anyway, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, we definitely, because up until this point, I guess it was kind of up in the
Up
air
in the
whether
air, yeah.
the Me Too thing really happened or not. At this point, you really see like, no, this guy is a piece of shit. Like he did actually do all this stuff. All the things that happened to him is deserved. And then he gets killed, and then everybody claps.
Yep.
And then the end. She survives. Mom dies. Justin Long dies.
Yeah. Essentially, she blows his mom's like head off. I believe.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, why was this on your list?
I liked the way it took like those two like hard turns, So we're like, you think the movie's going in one direction. Obviously you think that, the Skarsgård is going to be the bad guy, right?
Because he's creepy.
Right. And then like, even when he gets, something bit me, you're like, oh, here it comes. He's going to, he's pretending, right?
Right.
Like something's going to happen. And then when his head gets smashed in the wall, I was like, that was very unexpected. I did not see that part coming. And then again, hard turn to Justin Long, like a character we haven't even seen yet.
Right.
And then he shows up at the house again, completely different character, completely different storyline. Ends up in the same place, and then again, it takes another hard turn where we see like this old dude back when he was younger in his like serial killing days.
Yeah.
Back at the height of the neighborhood, seeing that like, he built all this stuff under the house, and because he liked his weird catacombs that he built, he stayed there even though he was renting out the top house as an Airbnb, or actually he's probably sold the house. Like nobody knew about that place.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then, eventually, but again, like you expect some kind of showdown with that guy. But no, he just shoots himself.
Yep.
It's just done. And again, it was just, there's a lot of different, turns and pathways. And it was, again, it was all well done. I thought it was all fantastically shot. It was like, I mean, obviously the mom is extremely creepy looking.
Yes.
The effects are really, really well done.
Yeah.
But you feel it. And again, I like the way it took all those hard turns, and it was just, a lot of unexpected fun stuff going on. It was a good time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This almost made my list. Just because of what it was. Like I thought, it was, written by a comedian guy who was in the TV show Wrecked, which was a parody of Lost. They had Reese Darby in it, and him and other people, sci-fi people, But yeah, it was amazing that he wrote this, and this got a lot of buzz. I remember. And also that Justin Long was in it. I'm watching this movie. I'm like, okay, where's Justin Long?
Right. Again, it's
separate movie.
Right. Yeah. It's like, again, it's just a hard cut, hard turn.
Yeah.
Something different.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely a good movie for that. All right. So, our number ones are the same.
Yeah.
We discussed this movie in episode 10.
Correct.
And that is the Hellraiser sequel, remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it, right? The new Hellraiser. It's not a remake, sorry. A reboot, requel, reimagining. So yeah, I mean, you just quick synopsis. It's a good return. Someone finds, a rich guy finds the lament configuration, tries to open it, and it's like the lament configuration that was in number 2 in Hell, essentially comes down, and we kind of just fade to the next cast of characters. Right, we see something happen to him and whatnot. Right, and essentially we then follow a woman who's hard on her luck, lives with her brother and his boyfriend, and just goes through some weird stuff. They break into this guy's house, this rich guy's house, because he's supposedly been dead for 20 years or something like that. They find the limit configuration, open it up, and just Cenobites, and it becomes a typical, I wouldn't say typical at this point in time, but a Hellraiser movie that really returned to form to Hellraiser. And we do get a lot more lore into this. They kind of get, picked off one by one. They go to the house, which is essentially a giant lament configuration. We get introduced to a lot new Cenobites. And instead of the priest or Pinhead, we now have the priestess, played by a woman. And they kind of go into the house and realize that one guy that she kind of likes, that was like it rehab with her, was kind of part of this. And yeah, that the crazy rich guy was still alive, but he was also turning into a Cenobite. Like, he had the machine through his sternum that was huge, that so he would never stop not feel pain. It always twist his nerves in him or pull some strings, so he's always in constant pain. And realize that there's 6 different configurations, limit configuration has to go through to finish the thing, so he can get out of this suffering that he had.
Oh yeah, it's like essentially when you go, there's all the different levels of configuration, and when you go to each level, you have to like kill somebody or make a sacrifice.
Yes,
and then when you get to the end, you basically get like a wish granted, but it's like a monkey's paw wish. So where
he wished
you have
for
to be extremely careful, right?
He wished for what, power?
Yeah, because I think you can wish for one of the other configurations, because the configurations mean something. So you wish for
power, revival.
Right?
Like, she's like, I can wish for my brother to be alive again.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Essentially, that's what it's going to. But yeah. So the first time he chose like sensation or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then that was like, okay, here you go. Now you have this giant typewriter attached to you that constantly winds your nerves up, so you're like constantly in pain. That's
right.
Technically new sensations, right?
Yep, constant sensation.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic movie. I mean, again, I thought the last Hellraiser movie was pretty good. But obviously it's not as good as this one.
Right.
We had a lot of really bad Hellraisers in between there. I mean, we had
like
5 terrible ones.
Yeah,
6.
I mean,
no, 5 terrible ones.
Yeah, and then ones that were terrible for being Hellraiser and terrible if there were bad movies that tacked on Hellraiser to them.
Right. Yeah, but this is like a movie that was definitely written as a Hellraiser movie. Definitely expanded a lot on the original, lore and everything, with also honoring, what came before. I mean, again, it was just very, very well done. Very, very cool. I mean, all the things that made Hellraiser cool, they just kind of expanded on. And made interesting things and all kinds of callbacks and everything. And I thought it was great. So, I mean, I hope they move forward with that. I'm pretty sure, I think I heard they were making another one.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a great place to move forward from. I mean, it's great that it gets, the talent and the budget that it deserves to be done well.
Yeah.
So I think Clive Barker came back as a producer. He didn't do anything major, but yeah, he was back as a producer. I think he had some kind of hand in the writing of it. But.
Right. I mean, this is in the top 3 Hellraiser movies. 1 and 2 are also in there, and then the rest are where they are.
Right. No, yeah, definitely. And again, that's it's great that it's getting the reboot with still respecting what came before. But yeah, now they can move forward and they don't have to worry about the stuff in the past. They can do their new thing now, and it's great. And Hellraiser is the kind of franchise that you can do that with, because Pinhead, although he was the main face of the franchise, he doesn't have to be.
Right. They've always shown that there's other Cenobites that exist in the world.
There's always been. They just weren't the lead ones. So now we have a new one. That's it.
Right. And there was probably a Pinhead before Pinhead, because he was only around for, of the hundreds of years that the configuration was.
Well, he became Pinhead in World War One.
Right. He became the priest.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's only been around for 100 years, and they're considering that the box was made in the 1700s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there had to have been several before him.
Yes. But also time doesn't exist in hell.
I mean,
because he number 4, he knew the queen that was missing for hundreds of years in hell, the princess.
Yeah, I guess
that's the demon they trapped in the body with Adam.
Right.
So yeah. But no, this was what this franchise needed, and we had sat down and watched the previous 10 all in a row, or previous 9, and then this one. 10, and then this one, and this was a perfect return to form. This was what Hellraiser should have continued to have been, and it is a fantastic way to move forward with the franchise. And he said, Easter eggs to other stuff, like I said, the limit configuration that was like the diamond was the diamond that was in hell. The dagger wasn't shaped as well. So, I mean, it tied together nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And just made Hellraiser again. And here's where you and I have discussed before, even off podcast, is our liking of these movies versus people's Rotten Tomatoes scores. Like, this got bombed on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm not surprised. Again, it's all the horror purist people. If they change something that they think is holy, they will review bomb it. I mean, because those are just the kind of people, they always kind of band together, and they always, have their people. And again, it's the very vocal minority.
Yeah,
it's like, so yeah, they take up a tiny percentage of the fan base, but they're so loud that everyone assumes that's what the entire fan base is. So many other movies have done the same thing, and we discussed it a little bit when we were talking about Halloween and the Rob Zombie Halloween things, right, where all the horror purists, crapped all over it because, again, they gave him a backstory, and he didn't originally have a backstory, therefore it's terrible. It's the same kind of thing, Pinhead is the leader of the Cenobites. He always has been, he always will be, and now that we have somebody else in there, it's terrible. Which, again, if you watch the movie, it's fantastic.
Yes.
I don't understand. I mean, there was a couple of the movies he wasn't even in.
Right. And we've always discussed this well for years now that, I'm kind of a horror movie purist at times. Don't deny that, never denied it. But I think as looking over the reviews and ratings and these things, I'm beginning to realize, like, I'm closer to your side of things than what we're calling the pure side of things at this point. Especially as we're rewatching the Rob Zombie stuff. All right, yeah, when 2008, did I not like it? Yeah, but rewatching it, 14 years later, I realized it's a better movie than what it was.
Yeah, but again, there's just a lot of people. And again, there's a lot of crossover. I mean, because I play a lot of games too. And they're just the same people. They're very vocal minority that talk about just crazy stuff in games. There's one little thing that they don't like, and they get all up in arms. Even though, again, these are the creative people that made the games, right? This is the company that owns the IP. They trust those people to make stories, just like they trust the Hellraiser people. Whoever owns the IP of Hellraiser trusted these people to make a new version of it, right?
Right.
So whether you like it or not, this is the franchise. This is where it's going. I mean, again, if you like it, great. If you don't. I mean, but if you don't go out of your way to try to game the system to make it look worse than it is. I hate that they do that. Games that, they get upsetting or whatever, and you look on, like Metacritic, and like the user, score will be like 0 because there's like 3,000 0 ratings.
Yeah.
And it's like over something stupid. Like, I mean, sometimes I wouldn't say it's deserved, but I understand it. Like, with the whole Battlefield 2 thing.
Yeah.
When you found out you'd have to play the game for thousands of hours to get the stuff without buying it.
Or you use real world pay to win.
Right. Yeah. And again, like, those are like missteps. I mean, so bad that the company walked it back. They had to. That's, again, I understand why you're upset, but, little things, to where you're like, oh, don't put your politics in my game. It's like, okay, that stuff doesn't make any sense, man. The world is politics. If you want real story, if you want games to be taken seriously as an art form, you have to have real stories. You have to have some form of politics. People are people, right? Yeah. If you want real stories to be in there, if you want realistic characters, they have to have realistic beliefs and stuff. I mean,
the most recent example would be Last of Us Part 2.
Right. Again, it's like, well, I don't want to ruin it for people, but something happens that they don't agree with, and then they try to tell the guy who wrote everything, who was a major creative force behind it, they try to tell him what he should have done. Like, that's not your choice, man. That's
only number 2.
Right. I was like, that's not your choice. The game is fantastic. I mean, if you look at what the game is trying to tell you, it's trying to tell you, like, what is, if you go on this quest for vengeance, what does it do? Like, what does it do for you in the end?
Yeah.
Right. It ends up screwing you. Okay. And that's exactly what happens. These people that go on these quests for vengeance to try to get back at someone for, slights that were made against them. What happens when they, fulfill those things? Nothing.
Yeah.
they become hollow and empty, and versions of themselves, and they lose everything that they love. And I think, again, there's a lot of things I could bring up metaphors in, but I don't want to ruin parts of the game.
Correct. Yeah, but like I said, it's just So once again, grain of salt. These are our opinions, obviously, for the top 5 that we.
No, these are facts.
Yes, Hellraiser, the best movie of 2020. There you go. Let's start the nominees. We'll get some Snyder bots on here, and
right.
All right. So
the bottom 5. I don't want to spend too much time on these, so I don't like them. So we're going to keep it shorter.
We can just pretty much say what we didn't like about them.
Yeah, that's fair.
And if you want, for our listeners and anyone else, we'll give you our list. You agree with us, you don't agree with us. That's your opinion, and you're right to have it.
Yes.
Everyone
has the right to your own opinion.
Right. And, we disagree on things on our own podcast with each other sometimes, and that's okay. Makes great banter, makes great content. So I like varying opinions and be able to have a civil conversation about it. This is why we do.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Well, I mean, that's another.
That's why we do it.
Yeah, another thing that's wrong with discourse in the world today is that people they get in their echo chambers and they think that they're right and they don't want to hear any other sides.
Yeah.
And the other side may be wrong, but you have to hear them. You have to understand where that's coming from in order to try to talk to them about it. If you just scream in their face that they're wrong, they're never going to listen to you. In fact, you're probably making them more positive that they're right.
Yeah.
By you doing that. But if you understand where they come from and then truly try to have a real conversation about what their genuine, fears or reasoning is behind believing that, that's when you can have a real conversation.
Yeah, and we never try to shame the people who like it. We just shame the movies that we don't like.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, that's fine. Yeah, if you want to have a discussion to me about why these top bottom 5 are not bad and they're actually good, that's great. Fine. Okay. Yeah. I'll have that conversation. I don't believe you, but
I don't think anyone's disagree with our number 1.
No. Except for the guys who made it, maybe.
No, maybe. All right, so let's get into your number 5, bottom 5. We're counting from the 5th worst to counting up to the worst of 2022.
Okay. Okay. So 5 counting up to 1. 1 being the worst. 5 being the least worst. Right. My number 5 would be The Killing Tree, which we just went over a couple episodes ago. Yep. Again, it wasn't. It came out this year. I mean, was there other Christmas movies that were worse? Yes. But they didn't come out this year. So this one, it came out this year. And again, I didn't necessarily dislike this movie. It wasn't great. It wasn't good. I don't want to watch it again, but I wasn't upset that I watched it. But, there was a lot of movies that came out this year. And most of them worked pretty good. This one is just, again, you look at that long list of movies that I watched and I have to kind of weed out the ones that I liked the least, and this one ended up on the bottom 5.
Well, I mean, in fairness too, for this list, I know we both had a hard time trying to find 5 bottom ones.
Yeah, we were originally just talking to doing a 3 because we couldn't find them, and then I watched a bunch of movies on New Year's Eve, and I was like, "Wow, no, there are some bad ones. I can do 5."
Yeah.
Before I watched some of these movies that are on this list, I really thought we were going to have to do a bottom 3 because I couldn't.
Right.
I was like, I don't see enough that I would consider bad.
Yeah. You've watched bad movies this year.
I've watched plenty of bad movies this year, but again, they're not from 2022. So
right.
Killing Tree is just a couple episodes ago, but Evil Christmas Tree brought back by magic ritual that kills people that they perceive as the reason why they died or whatever.
Yeah, and on that object comes life.
Yeah. So we already went over this a couple episodes ago. But yes, the effects are horrible. The CGI is very bad. Again, the ridiculous guy in a tree suit was funny enough. That part, I won't even take off points for that. It was funny, right? But the CGI was just so bad.
Awful.
None of the kills were even on screen. It was just like CGI blood splatter. I mean, it was like very lazily done.
Yep. I don't disagree. This was close to being on the list.
Right.
Yeah, so that's fair. My number 5, I don't think you watched it. You don't think you had a chance to watch it this year. Firestarter?
No.
Because when it came out, I told you don't watch it.
Well, yeah, I kind of saw this one coming, like I was like, why are you redoing Firestarter? Like everybody knows the original Firestarter. That was like Drew Barrymore, right? Everybody knows that movie. Why would you bother rebuilding? Like, especially Drew Barrymore is like still popular. Like,
yes,
she's still around all the time. Like, how can you forget where she started?
Right.
I don't get why they did it, but two, I saw who they had in the movie, and I was like, I haven't seen anything from them yet that I thought was like, oh, that's good.
And that person means Zac Efron.
Correct. Okay, no, he's been good in only one thing.
Baywatch.
And that was Firefly.
Okay.
Because he was like, I don't know, 10 years old.
Yeah.
And it's Firefly. And no one
played
could
the
do
young
wrong.
version of, right?
He played the young version of Simon Tam, yes.
Yeah. That's right.
That's the only thing he's been in. I mean, there's been some things he's been okay in, but nothing I've been like, that was good. Good job, Zac Efron. Never,
right.
Not yet.
He wasn't bad in Neighbors.
I did not watch that.
1 and 2. But for me, you and I read a lot of Stephen King.
Yes.
And I don't think, like, it's okay. Like, with it was truer to the story. It told the story separate, and it was a good remake or adaptation of the novel. It didn't try to be the TV miniseries in 1990. Right. This was just pretty much a rehash of Firestarter in 1985 or something like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
84, 85.
Right.
Around your favorite movie, E.T. But I go, this was completely unnecessary. It didn't add anything from the book that I can recall. It was a completely unnecessary remake. It is as unnecessary as Vince Vaughn's Psycho. You know what I mean? Like, if it was truer to the book, sure, okay, I can see a reason for the remake, because Stephen King movies are notorious for not being close to the books, unfortunately. And we will get to Stephen King's movies at some point in time. I don't know if we're going to read the books first or not, just to go on that wrath. But yeah, I just found this to be a completely unnecessary remake. I watched it, and I go, I didn't care to watch it. I really didn't. It served no purpose in my mind. So that's why it's on my list at number 5.
Right.
Oh,
yeah, I didn't watch it, and I don't think I ever will, and that's okay.
Oh,
I'm okay with it.
We're probably going to, unfortunately.
Nope.
Probably have to watch this again.
Not gonna happen. I'll lie and say I did.
Okay, that's fine.
No.
You remember Drew Barrymore blew up stuff in her mouth?
Yeah. Well, if we get there, we get there, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to move on? My next one?
Let's go on your number 4.
Number 4 is Don't Worry, Darling. I don't know if it's technically a horror movie. It shows up on all the horror movie lists. So I'm going to call it a horror movie. I just did not like it. So I'm going to put it on this list because it's very easy for me to put on this list. There's a lot of things going on. I mean, in this movie, one, Shia LaBeouf, I like him a lot. He's goofy and crazy, but he plays likable characters in movies, and I generally like watching movies that he's in. Yeah. He was the original lead in this movie, and there's like all kinds of weird controversy. Did he get fired? Did he quit? What happened? Who knows? I mean, Olivia Wilde and him both say two different things.
Yep.
And now they won't say which one is right. And then it's just done. Anyway, goofy, controversy, all that kind of stuff, right? So Olivia Wilde directed it. And then what does she do since Shia LaBeouf got, quit, fired, disappeared, whatever? She puts her boyfriend at the time in the movie, Harry Styles, who can't act for shit.
Correct. We already saw that
horrible.
We already saw that brief appearance in Eternals. And worst acting in the entire movie.
Oh my God. I mean, it's so bad. And Florence Pugh is great. She's great in just about everything that she's been in. She's fantastic in this movie.
Oh, you love Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like her a lot. Chris Pine, fantastic. He was awesome in this movie.
Olivia Wilde has done a couple horror movies and been great.
Yeah, no, she was great in this movie too. It's just that Harry Styles, every scene he is in, it's just like he just sucks the life out of it. I mean, when there's scenes that are between like Florence Pugh and Chris Pine, like they're great scenes, like they're playing off each other and the acting is well, it's done well. Olivia Wilde's character, she's not in the movie a whole lot, but she's in it enough to where it's like, okay, she's doing a good job. And again, the storyline is, kind of predictable. I mean, you don't know the exact method of how these things are happening, but you pretty much guess what's happening.
I mean, I've watched half of it, and the wife looked it up, and I go, "Am I right?" She goes, "Yeah." I go, "Okay."
Yeah,
I was able to guess that.
I pretty much knew what was going on. It's at some point in the movie.
It's essentially I would say a modern Stepford Wives.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I like the kind of twist that they put on it. Like it's this weird kind of like alpha male alt-right spin to it. But I mean, again, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't great. It's just that Harry Styles is supposed to be like the protagonist of the film.
Right.
Well, protagonist until a certain point where it twists. But with him, you don't get that twist really. Like, cause he's so fucking shitty at acting that like you just hate him the whole time. So it's like when you find out what's really going on, like I couldn't hate him anymore than I already did at that point. So like that twist meant nothing to me.
And how do you feel about the ending with what Olivia Wilde was striving for? Do you feel she was counterproductive to her own message? The whole feminist movement part of it.
I mean, that wasn't really a part of it. I mean, it was more of like, this is what some of these people say that they want. Here is a possible way that they could get it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And again, the politics issue I don't felt was pushed too hard. I don't think it was pushed to the point where I got upset. It wasn't 2019 Black Christmas level. Just push the politics to the maximum for no reason whatsoever. I mean, it was definitely there. I'm not going to say it wasn't there, but that wasn't the point of it. That wasn't the main focus. Right. Again, it was there. It was definitely a part of it. I mean, yeah, it showed up a little bit at the end, but again, they didn't like have that cheesy. They usually have some stupid cheesy line.
Yeah.
Or it's like it's just completely unnecessary, and they put it in there like trying to grab for an audience. I don't know. I'd like, it's like you watch them sometimes, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is the scene in the movie theater where people go, yeah, you tell it like it is, or whatever. It's some stupid line where it's just very cringy, and it's like, why do you have to do that stuff? Why do you have to ruin it with that? But yeah, there wasn't that moment in this. It was just basically just ruined by Harry Styles' acting. Is essentially what it was. It was a lot of this hinged on his acting.
Right.
And like, I'll give you an example. There's a scene where he's like, goes up on stage and dances. There's no explanation as to why he goes up and dances there. I think they just did that because he like knows how to dance and they needed him to do something, and that's all he knew how to do. Or something, I guess. So he goes up there and he's like dancing. So Chris Pine is like, talking to other people and like giving this speech, and like Harry Styles is like dancing behind him. And that's like all he does. He just flails around and he keeps doing the same dance move over and over and over again.
That's his boy band days.
Right. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what is the point of this? And again, Chris Pine, great. Florence Pugh, great.
Yeah.
Olivia Wilde was great. Harry Styles was just terrible, and he basically ruined that movie. And again, all the goofy controversy that happened around that movie was not handled well.
No.
That was not handled well at all. It was this huge, big explosion. Apparently, that probably drove it to do well, because it did well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of that controversy did well. But again, like, moving forward, I don't know how likely Olivia Wilde is going to be to continue working if it seems like it's that difficult to work with her. I don't know. Well, I don't know if it's her. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I just think, it's not going to have a good reputation moving forward. That's
correct. All. It's going to taint.
Right. But yeah, it's a terrible movie. Harry Styles acting is bad. if Harry Styles' acting wasn't as bad as it was, and like so a decent actor like Shia LaBeouf was in it, I think it would have been much better.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so yeah, my number 4, which I'm surprised was not on your list, probably pretty close to it. Choose or Die.
It was on my list before I watched 3 of the other movies that are on this list. I watched them all in the same day. But yeah, it was on the list until that point, and then it got bumped down. It's probably number 6, truthfully.
Yeah. So Choose or Die. The premise is that someone wrote a game for it was the Odyssey 2. Guy obsessed with the 80s. He was one of the Night's Watch, Game of Thrones, and essentially, was it Asa Butterfield's in this, and they're essentially playing like a new version of this, Choose or Die adventure game where you have to do things. If you don't do it, you die, or someone gets hurt around you. Now, to me, the idea was like a Black Mirror episode. Like, right. The idea they could have gone with this would have been like a perfect Black Mirror episode. The execution, awful.
Yeah.
Just awful. And especially like that scene of, did he die or not? It was like, throwing up the VHS film and then sucking it back up and just forward and reverse. And like the guy who survived because he did everything they said to do, and they had to be like a final boss battle. And like they couldn't, whatever they did to each other would affect the other one, which we see in so many things. Like, you can't hurt them. Whatever you do to me gets pushed back to you. And then you realize, I got to hurt myself to do it. I said, just like the idea behind it was great. The acting execution was awful.
Yeah, no, it was one of those movies where it was fun for like the first half of the movie. It was interesting. And then like the second half, it just fell apart. It just fell into like all this goofy nonsense. Like, I don't know what they were trying to do, but yeah, it just fell apart.
Right. And like the guy in the room talking about like, eating his hat or jacket or whatever the hell it was, or wallet.
Yeah.
It was just like the idea, great, execution, awful. That's all I can really say about that one.
Yeah. That's fair.
So yeah, I mean, I'd like to see someone else take that premise and do something else with it. Maybe Charlie Closer will, or what's his name? Charlie from Black Mirror.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to see him do it or someone else do it, but it had they try to do the nostalgia feels of the 80s versus the new the new game, and we played those games where you just had to go north, go left, don't know what left is type crap.
Right.
We're old enough that we know those games, so yeah. Like I said, you said that was probably your number 6.
Probably.
I had to bump it up on this list. I'm like, this has to be on the list.
Yeah, like I said, when we were still working on the bottom 3, this was number 3 on the list. And then I watched 3 other terrible movies and they got bumped up. So yeah, this one's at number 6.
Yes, you can tell one of these movies I watched very recently too, and they got put on this list.
All right.
So let's get into your number 3 then.
Yep. My number 3 is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like the movie was okay. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was fun-ish, right? Until about the middle point. I would say, because, I mean, Lee Pace, I love Lee Pace. Lee Pace is awesome. Yeah. He is not in this movie for very long. And I would say very soon after Lee Pace dies, the movie just dies
with it.
Yeah, it basically just goes off the rails, and I don't understand what's happening. It basically starts off like they're a hurricane party. They're playing games and getting drunk and whatever. And they play a game where they're like pretending to be dead and then pretending to like whatever.
It's the game's called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't make it. It doesn't even make any sense. They don't even follow their own rules. Whatever.
Murder mystery.
Yeah. So game. People start dying. And then they're trying to figure out who did it. Then they kind of blame like Lee Pace because he's like the adult, right?
Old.
Well, yeah, old being
for adult, them, yeah,
right, yeah. So they like they kill him, and then again, like after he dies, and they're all like, there's this scene where they're in this room, and they're all like just trying to figure out like who did what to who, and who has motive to like kill other people, and blah blah blah. I mean, that feels like this scene goes on forever. I want to say it's like 30 minutes long. It's probably not. It just feels like it's that long. And this scene is just so badly done that like you hate everyone. Like I didn't like anybody except for Lee Pace in the beginning because they all kind of seemed shitty people to me. Like all of them did.
Yes.
And after this scene, I actively despised everyone. I hated all of them. I was like, you people are terrible people. You deserve everything you get.
Yes.
And the reveal at the end was just stupid. It was again, it just felt like a pulled punch, you know? It was just like a very unsatisfying ending. And it was just, again, it felt like, you know what I mean? Like I could feel the writer going, ha ha ha, you know, at the end of that movie, like, I got you.
Right.
You are
all
not
caused
good.
from someone being stupid.
Right. Like you are not good at this. You are not a good writer, although I know you think you are, because I can feel it coming off of this movie. And it was, it's just not good. I actively hated every character. And, you know, I mean, some movies are done that way. And again, the first half is like a comedy. Like it's
if Clue, but horror.
Right. Yeah, but it's a comedy. Like, people die, but it's still like funny-ish, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the reactions and stuff are funny until we get to Lee Pace's dead, until we get to that scene where they're all like blaming each other. And then it all of a sudden takes this extremely serious turn.
Yes.
Where it just, and then from then, there's no humor. There's no like soul to the movie after that. It just all leaves. And I don't know. Yeah.
Until the last scene, they watch the cell phone clip.
Right. And then the last scene, and then they try to go back to the comedy ish. And it's like, you killed it. It's gone. Like you can't try to put anything back in this, you know?
Correct.
It's not good. I was very, very upset.
Yeah, the ratings, the reviewers love this movie.
I don't know why. I mean, it's got to be young people liking the party vibe or something. I don't understand. Maybe I'm too old.
I mean, okay, yes, I'm like 8 years older than these people, but still, I didn't enjoy it.
Well, again, I can enjoy movies with modern people and modern sensibilities and all that kind of stuff. I have no problem with that. It's just it's not done well.
Correct.
And again, Lee Pace, like one of my favorite actors, is not treated well in this movie. There's just a lot of things going against it. I did not like it at all.
That's fair. All right, so my number 3 is your number 2.
Yes.
So here's the funny part, right? So we'll say what it is. It's Pearl, the sequel to X.
Well, prequel.
X is prequel, but yes, it was filmed at the same time as X. X is in my top 5. Pearl is in my bottom 5. And maybe I didn't know what it was like to be a young German girl who has a hillbilly accent raised in Louisiana or Texas, wherever the hell they were in the year 1919. Maybe I didn't get it because of that.
Well, man. I don't know. This movie, for being, sequel prequel to X, right?
Which was amazing,
right? You'd think it would like have the same vibe, right? Or at least
not even close.
Yeah, the same like general plot outline. As most sequels do, like similar stuff. They try to get like, what do they do in sequels? They try to go like bigger and better, right?
Yeah,
bigger, louder, scarier, whatever it is. And this like goes the complete opposite way, to where like 90% of this movie is like a coming of age movie of like a girl coming to terms with having to live on a farm with her overbearing mother and her dreams of being a celebrity dancer or actress, and like her, wanting and the dreams of this girl until we get to that point. Again, that's 90% of this movie.
Yes.
Like we don't get anything interesting happening until I would say probably 2/3 of the way through the movie is when the first like interesting thing happens. And then again, it goes away for another 15, 20 minutes. And then it comes back to the next interesting thing.
Yes.
It is just very badly done, especially after watching X and you're expecting something. And this is not
great.
it.
Yeah, no. And like, okay, 90% is coming of age. 2% is the social commentary of the Spanish flu where people were wearing masks. I appreciate that touch because we all know during the whole COVID that people are like, people in 1919 didn't fully understand germs and bacteria and viruses and knew to cover their face. And then we didn't,
it's also
play on that.
Well, back then they still trusted the government. Not with all things, but when it came to like, hey, wear a mask, it'll prevent you from getting sick, and people were like, dying. Okay.
Yeah. Well, like I said, and maybe in my family because, I had a great grandfather that died from the Spanish flu in 1918. So, it is known in our family history of that. It happened in our family. That pandemic happened. And we know people that died from it. I mean, not no one know, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just kind of like where'd she get the alligator from? Why does she kill people? And why is Howard okay with it? And her dancing dreams that Pearl had in X and the explanation for all that stuff.
I mean, most of these things are not even answered.
No.
And again, like I said, there's just so much of this movie that's really just like a farm girl coming to terms with the reality of being a star and leaving this rural world for the rich life of the city. Yes. It's like that's what 90% of this movie is, and it's not even done well. But maybe it's not my kind of movie, so it's like it's not the kind of movie I want to watch. And like the tiny little horror aspect that exists is very oversold by the descriptions and the genres and everything.
She sets her mom on fire. She suffocates her dad. She stabs her with a pitchfork, and she hits someone with an axe.
Yeah.
Nothing mind-blowing or even tension that we had in X.
Yeah, she doesn't even set her mom on fire on purpose.
Right.
Like that just happens, and then she doesn't do anything about it. And then she throws her in the basement.
She snaps, and that's it. And then she goes on to really, really long tirades.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, but that interesting thing of like her mom catching on fire doesn't happen until like 2/3 of the way through the movie.
Right.
And then she's like trying to like, live her dreams and like for another 15, 20 minutes before she finally, crashes down and realizes it's not going to happen. And then she kills everybody else.
I watched it in 2 pieces, and I stopped it probably with like 30 minutes left. I'm watching the second half. I'm looking at like the timer, like 10 minutes left. Like, all right, is something going to happen at some point? There's only 10 minutes left of the movie.
Right. That's what I was saying. Like, I was like sitting there like, man, I've been watching this movie for like over an hour and nothing has happened.
Yeah.
Like nothing is happening.
It's not even a slow burn. It's not even a slow burn.
No, like I said, it's like, again, when things do happen that are interesting, they're so empty. Like, it's not even worth it. You're like, ugh.
And you can have something like Halloween that, you have the first murder in the beginning minutes of the movie, and no one dies for 45 minutes in Halloween on screen. But it's a slow burn.
Right.
That's how you do the slow burn, the tension buildup.
Yeah,
everything like that.
Yeah, you're building suspense. There's things like, oh, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? Like, when is he going to do it? While you're learning who these characters are. Yeah, this is like you're all learning about her hopes and dreams and stuff. It's like, okay, well, like get to the horror part. Like, like X didn't play like these kind of games. Why are we playing them now? Right.
And so I don't know how excited I am for Maxine. That's coming out in 2023. The third movie of this.
Is it going to be another prequel?
No, it's going. She played Maxine. Mia Goth played Maxine, and she played Pearl in the first one. And this is what happens to Maxine after X.
Yeah, I don't know. If it's going to be another story like this of like her. Yeah, it's probably going to be like a Boogie Nights, where it's like we get to see the inside fictional world of the porn industry in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're going to do a heavier deep dive into this because movie that's coming out in 23 that we're going to do. So we'll touch base more into these and go into our deep dives into this trilogy when it comes out. So I'm not going to watch Pearl again.
No, I don't want to either.
I'll watch X and Maxine again, but I'm not watching Pearl again.
Ugh.
But yes, this was your number 2.
Yep.
Anything else to add to that conversation about why it's number 2 on your list?
No, just bad. Well, again, I think it strays way too far from X. I mean, because you look at the advertising, you look at all that stuff, and it all says it's like, oh, this is X. This is just like X. It's the sequel, prequel, whatever.
It's the unnerving sequel of X.
Exactly. And then you watch it, and it is not that. It is, and what it tries to be is not good. So it's just bad on multiple accounts.
And I have to say, her humping the scarecrow to orgasm was so cringy, unnecessary.
Well, yeah, but they had to have some kind of and that's what I don't understand. Okay, she boned the projectionist dude, right?
Yeah.
It happened off screen. Didn't even show anything.
Right.
And then they showed this long thing of her boning a scarecrow.
Yes.
With this long drawn out weird orgasm scene.
Yes.
Why couldn't you just have done that with the projectionist guy?
Right.
I don't get it. They cut one and then let the other one go.
I watched that. I'm just like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. It's there's just a lot of bad things with this movie. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah, again.
And I don't feel like I learned anything important for X.
Nope.
In the least bit.
Nope.
See, here's some lore that was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, again, I didn't need to know more about her. She was a crazy old lady who wanted to be famous and now, in her twilight years sees another woman who is, hot and attractive, how she thought she was back then, and she's jealous and starts killing people. I don't need more than that.
That's it.
I don't need a prequel to tell me about that. I already knew it.
Yes.
Unnecessary.
Yep. All right. Well, then I'll go into my number 2 then, which is Halloween Ends. Obviously, we discussed Halloween Ends in great detail in our end of the Halloween series. As we discussed, this was kind of like Hellraiser 5 through, let's say, 9, where it wasn't a Halloween movie originally, and then they attacked Michael Myers on at the end.
Yeah. Again, I'm pretty sure I said this back then, but yeah, essentially it's if this movie existed in a point to where the Michael Myers in the movie was a figment of his imagination.
Yes.
The thing that drove him forward, it would have been a much, much better movie. But the fact
last
that they
20 minutes and been great.
Yeah, and so it's the fact that they had to physically put him in the movie. So we're none of this stuff that, because before that point, it might have been just in his mind, no one else saw him. No one else, got any of this stuff, as far as anyone else knows, he just disappeared. I mean, there's so many things that don't make sense about this movie. I mean, we went over all this stuff about how Laurie Strode is just all of a sudden now totally fine with, not prepping anymore, got rid of all the weapons and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't make any sense at all. But I think if you kept Michael Myers as just a figment in his head, as a reimagining, this is, whatever the supernatural force that's driving him forward and not a physical presence, it would have been a much better movie.
The same evil that was in Michael was now in him.
Right. Yeah. And that would have made much more sense. But instead they brought him physically back at the end of a movie where, again, it doesn't make sense to put him in there. It's very stupid.
And the thing is, I felt like they did that because this is also hyped as the final battle between good and evil, between Laurie and Michael.
Right.
And that's how it was advertised it was going to be, and then it was just shoehorned in.
Yep.
As an afterthought.
Yep.
Oh shit, we told people we were going to do that. I guess we should do that now, huh? Okay. Yeah, let's bring them in.
Yeah, you can tell the original script ended at that point, and then somebody else just kept going.
Yes. Yeah, so like I said, go back and listen to our Halloween franchise part, because we really go into that pretty extensively.
Yeah.
which happens to be episode 14.
Well, yeah, but there's like 4 Halloween episodes.
Yes,
That's just the last 14. One.
Yes, Halloween Ends we discussed in episode 14 on Your Boogeyman Part 4. All right, and for those that listen to our podcast, they're not going to be surprised by our number 1. This was the lowest rating we have ever given everything so far, and it's Jeepers Creepers Reborn. I mean, it's... Why don't you go first on this?
Yeah, I mean, I've already been over it, but I mean, yeah, we're going over like the convention that has like 20 people at it. I mean, we're talking the Jeepers Creepers clothes are made of like black garbage bags. I mean, the things they bringing back things just to show them, and then they never do them again. Like his truck. Yep. Like they show the truck and then it never happens again, even though it was like a major part of the other movies. I mean, again, there's so many just stupid, dumb things. The acting is terrible. I mean, the people are terrible. Everything is just bad. And then, of course, the famous line, "How you like them peepers, bitch," even though the song that is supposed to be referencing wasn't even in the movie.
Right.
So you can tell they wrote it thinking they were going to be able to get the rights to that, and then they didn't. But they filmed the movie assuming that they did, and then they just like ham-fisted some other song in there without explaining anything else.
Yes.
And then they have the final one-liner of the movie reference a song that they didn't even play.
Yep.
Oh man.
I think I wasn't taking good enough notes in episode 7 where we discussed this. I think we brought the scale down to a 0. I think you gave it 0.5, and I think I gave it 1. I'm pretty sure. Well, once we get our website up and running, we're going to have all these scores and our rankings and all that stuff on there for reference points. But yeah, I mean, it was trying to be like it was said at the time too. We can make a better Jeepers Creepers movie, and I think we could.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that's. I mean. You take like 3 random people you find at a park and hand them a camcorder and $20, and they could have made a better version of it.
Maybe that's what they did. Maybe they only paid them 10. I mean, that might have been the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a terrible. I mean, I feel bad for. Well, I mean, the original guy who made Jeepers Creepers is kind of a shitbag anyway.
Yeah,
so I guess I don't feel bad that they stole his IP and made crap out of it, but
right.
Maybe that's why they did it. Maybe that's why it's so bad. Is they want to make him suffer. To him? Yeah, maybe they want to make him suffer.
That's fair. All right, so that's our ranking for this, and we both brought 2 honorable mentions that could have been on this list that we probably going to visit. We talked about one of these, but we we're probably going to visit some of these other movies at some point in time as well. My first honorable mention is Terrifier 2. Now, when this came out, I'd never seen Terrifier. So I go, okay, there's a huge amount of buzz over Terrifier 2.
Yeah, I remember hearing about all the people like passing out and throwing up in the theater. And
yeah. And I watched Terrifier. I go, okay, you know what? The practical effects are on par of what they were in the 80s, and that's okay. They're practical effects, and they're good for it. That's why I enjoyed Terrifier. Terrifier 2, I watched it. The wife wouldn't watch it with me because of the particular scene. And they just made this supernatural thing. And, like I said, it was good. I had no issues with it. Like I said, it seemed an homage to 80s, video nasties. And it was great for it. But I was watching, I go, okay, it got done. I go, so where's this scene everybody's talking about?
Right.
I'm looking it up. I'm like, what scene are they talking about? I looked it up. I go, oh, that was fine.
Well, I mean, I think they overhyped it. I mean, a lot of horror movies do that. Like if, they don't know, how people are going to react to it, or if they want a big buzz about their movie, they'll like oversell somebody, not feeling well when they come out of the theater, and they like, oh, look, it makes you sick when you watch it.
Yeah.
And then it gets a big buzz and everybody's like, ooh.
But my comment to that would be, anyone that was surprised by Terrifier 2 clearly didn't watch Terrifier.
Well,
You know exactly what you're getting yourself into with Terrifier 2 if you watch the first one. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's pretty good. So I can't wait. They're doing the number 3. So when we get to that, you'll sit down and probably watch these then, and we'll go over these again.
yeah, no, I haven't watched them yet.
Yeah, I said Terrifier 3 is supposed to be coming out, so we'll probably save it for then. And my second honorable mention is Nope. We discussed this, Jordan Peele trilogy that he wrote and directed. We obviously left Candyman off. We did discuss it briefly. But overall, yeah, this was a great movie as well. I enjoyed other movies more than Nope. That's why I didn't make it in my list. It's probably, I'd say, number 6 or 7. If we did a top 10, it would be on there. What about you?
Yeah, if we did a top 10, it would probably be up there.
Yeah. So those are my 2 honorable mentions. What about yours?
Mine would be No Exit, just because it has that storyline that I love, where it's like a bunch of strangers get stuck together, and have to try to figure out why they're together, what's going on, blah blah blah. It was just fun, basically, yeah, that's like like a bunch of people get stuck in like a rest stop. They find a girl in a van out in the parking lot, and they try to figure out who in this group of people is the person that has a kidnapped girl in their van.
Okay.
And then, of course, once you figure out what's going on, bad things happen, blah, blah.
Okay.
But it's just a fun movie. Again, I really like that concept of like, people
Right.
that don't know each other, and they,
Yes.
just fun. I like it.
So this is going to probably make that list when we do that episode then.
Probably. Yeah, it definitely can be.
Okay. We'll have to keep that in mind, that we are going to be doing an episode with that scenario. We're probably call it what it was called in the Twilight Zone, right? For the name of it.
Yeah, I think it's I don't think there's an official 6 name. People in search of an exit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Like I said, I haven't watched that one. I don't think I've ever heard of it, but you saying it's good and it's your go-to storyline that you really enjoy. So I'm excited to watch it when we get to it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. Again, it's not amazing, but it's pretty good. Yeah, it would definitely be in my top 10 for the year.
Okay.
And my second one is going to be Crimes of the Future, just because I am a huge Cronenberg fan. It is a fantastic movie. The only reason why it's not in my top 5 is because I really don't feel like it's horror movie. I feel like it's more of like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
There's horror elements with it. It's all body horror elements. It's not really like scary horror elements.
Right.
So if body horror bothers you, then yes, this will bother you. But if you're looking for like a traditional horror experience, it's not really it. So like I said, I try to keep my list to more pure, not necessarily pure, because I got Prey on my list and stuff, but Prey has more horror elements than this does. But again, it's a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed it. I just don't think it's horror-y enough to be in the top 5 horror.
Yeah, I know when we go back to revisit David Cronenberg, that we will probably do his psychological thriller stuff in a separate category, separate episode, like we did his more horror based things. At least the first half of his catalog. Did you watch the original one he did? That was his school film, his dissertation?
Yeah, there was like a short film that came out with. It's like a John Carpenter had that. What was that sci-fi movie? It was like Dark Host or something. It was like something about a spaceship. That's like the movie that he made in school that they did release as a movie, but it wasn't a good movie.
Right.
It was great for a student film, but it's not good as a movie, considering like his movies after that.
That's fair. That really is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to watch this. I know the wife will not watch it with me because she does not like body horror.
Yeah, like I said, it's weird. It's got a lot of those, kind of strange Cronenberg aspects of things.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Viggo Mortensen's in it, Kristen Stewart's in it. The French lady, I can never remember her name. She played Fragile in Death Stranding. Um,
Is that the Chloe Day something?
yeah, probably. She's got a very French name. It ends in like the EAUX that
Yeah,
French. Yeah, yeah, that's her.
yeah, okay, yeah. I think she's an American Horror Story Hotel.
That's very possible. I never watched it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So, and then we come to a kind of our final discussion point, which we'll be brief about, is people are saying it. I want to get your thought. Is 2022 one of the best years for horror movies?
And I'll say, yeah. I mean, just because when I was looking through all those lists, writing down only writing down the ones that I liked that were in contention for the top five. And I had a list that was like 12, 15 long. And again, I had the separate problem when I was looking for the worst is I was like, wow, like there's not a lot of movies I would consider bad. And like there was some movies that were ending up on this is what we're only doing a bottom three. There's some movies that ended up on my bottom three that I liked. They were just the ones that I liked the least.
Right.
And I was like, no, this movie is good enough where it shouldn't be on a bad list at all. It's just by default it is because all the movies were better than this one that year. So yeah.
I mean, this really, and a lot of people are saying it's just like this is probably the best year for horror movies in 30 plus years since the 80s. And I can't remember a year of horror movies that had this many bangers in it.
Yeah, not really. I mean, again, and a lot of these, I mean, I watch horror movies, obviously, but I usually watch the ones that get buzz, that sound interesting.
Yeah.
And there was so many this year that I watched a lot, even, outside of doing the podcast, like I was, making time to watch some of these newer movies because they really sounded interesting and fun. Like, like Barbarian.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, stuff that got buzz, it sounded interesting. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I have to watch it, but it happened so many times this year. Like it happened all year long.
Right. And we had so many new entries in franchises.
Mm-hmm.
So many. And we had Scream 5. We had, another Halloween. We had another VHS. Obviously, we had Jeepers Creepers Reborn. But, Terrifier, we had the Jordan Peele movie. There were just so many things in here that we couldn't keep up.
Yeah, but it's a year where a Jordan Peele movie, which is a good movie, doesn't even make the top five because there's that many good movies out.
And that I think that's saying something. Right. It really is.
Right.
Yeah, so they're hoping to have a back-to-back surge of horror movies. Like we haven't had this. We got some great ones in like 2015 with like It Follows, and some in 2017, 2018, but not this many.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like a side effect of the pandemic.
Probably.
Because I mean, you think about like what's the kind of movie that people could easily make. You know what I mean?
Pandemic?
Moving forward, the episode would be that. Because it's usually like a limited cast and a limited.
The bubble
crew.
Small.
Right. Yeah, as you say, like big, huge blockbuster movies, like those are hard because there's a lot of people involved. But you're saying like a movie like X, I mean, that's it's a relatively small cast on a farm. There's no other scenes that happen outside of the farm.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, obviously there's a decent amount of crew and stuff, but if they're all in a bubble on that farm filming that movie, I mean, I guess it makes sense to horror movies, I guess are easier to make with smaller crews and smaller budgets.
Right. Because you generally follow like 8 people.
Right.
8 to 10, maybe. Right. But yeah, I mean, it was fantastic year. Like I said, I'm hopeful for 2023. We are compiling our lists so we can start planning this year out based on the movies that we know about so far. And I'm excited for some of these. And, I'm excited for 2023 because we're getting Scream 6. So you're going to be watching the Scream movies that you might haven't seen 4 and 5 yet.
Yeah, I haven't. I've seen the first 3. I have not seen any of the newer ones.
Yeah, and, we already have We already have a VHS announced for 2023 as well.
Yeah, I think they're going to do them like once a year now. It's going to be like the new Saw.
And that's exciting. And we're having a new Saw movie, Saw X.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Jeez, I don't know. I stopped watching them at some point. I don't remember one. I think I watched the first 5.
Yeah, the only one I haven't seen was Spiral. I've seen the rest.
But there's a few I haven't watched. It might be 4. It's 4 or 5 that I've seen up to.
Yeah. So I mean, we're going to be watching a good number of movies this year in preparation for these things, and then filling in our gaps with the rest because we're talking. They're talking about yeah, especially with Saw, that's going to be split up into multiple phases, and everything like that. So we have a good work ahead of us for 2023. So this was our first year in review. We are planning on doing this every year in the first episode of January, just to go back through the previous year and make our list. We start making our list, as soon as we start with next week. I don't think anything new's coming out next week, but this month in January, we have like 1 or 2 movies that are fresh that we'll be covering. Anything else you want to add to this?
Nope.
Okay. Well, in that case, let's close out 2022 and look forward to 2023 as we're only day 2. So let's stay tuned for next week's episode where we'll be diving into the movies of Dario Argento. And this is going to be our 3rd director spotlight episode. We did John Carpenter and we did David Cronenberg. Oh, this is 4th. Jordan Peele.
Oh, yeah.
4th one.
That's right.
All right. So, we'll just be going through some of his works. We'll probably touch base later on his works because he has a lot of movies that we can dive into. So we'll call this part 1 of Dario Argento, and it will include Suspiria, Tenebra, and then Demons 1 and 2. So, why don't you lead us out there?
This is Salem saying, "Long live the new flesh."
And this is Graveyard saying, "Have you checked on the children?"